please.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Allison, and all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Great. Terrific, thank you. And we're going to move right into public comments. Hope, what have we got there?
First, we have Tim Kluke regarding the DVP for Ecclestone.
Okay, just as a comment, you were instructed on public comments because this is a rather long agenda. We have 15 minutes in it. I think we have 10 public speakers today, which is awesome. But we'd like to restrict you for 2 minutes. So I'm just going to put my timer on. And when the timer goes off, you're going to hear it and you'll get a note that I'd like you to wrap it up pretty quickly after that. So sorry, Hope, who was that first one?
Tim Kluke.
Oh, okay. Hi, Tim, wherever you are.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, please. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Ender and councillors. Regarding my dock application for 1160 Ecclestone, it is clear that some members of the public are not supportive of new docks on Bowen, but I'm also aware that Bowen bylaws that guide the actions of the whole body of citizens make provisions for docks and have already drawn boundaries to reflect values of ecological and public interest. My request for a setback variance is as a result of the hardship of the site and not a violation of the key values inherent in Bowen bylaws regarding, for example, dividing beaches, restricting use, or impeding access. In fact, my variance would provide for a safe, low maintenance, 24 hours a day, family-friendly public access trail to a beach that our variance expressly seeks to preserve and that your staff have confirmed has never been accessible by land except through trespassing or crossing private property. This offer achieves the goals of the OCP and Highlands Trust, and I refer you further to the report of Sean Driver that elucidates this and many additional points further to support our variance. And so I regard my offer of a statutory right-of-way as part of the variance I'm asking you to grant is a reasonable compromise, joining our goals to access the water from a dock, like our neighbors and many others in Mannion Bay, with the publicly expressed goals to access Ecclestone Beach. And furthermore, I am newly open to removing the condition that has been included in my variance to date, which would have the effect that the statutory right-of-way in the variance would not be contingent on dock approval by the province. I offer this for your consideration. Thank you.
Okay, Tim, just for clarification there, are you saying that if the dock happened to be approved today or in the future and it went to the province and they turned it down, that the easement would still be available?
The statutory right-of-way, correct.
Statutory right-of-way. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, thank you, Tim. And back.
Next, we have Jillian Darling regarding the Ecclestone Beach variance.
Terrific, thanks. Welcome, Gillian.
Can't hear you.
No.
There. It would help to unmute my mic. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. As our community informs themselves about the proposed dock application at Ecclestone Beach, they're making their views known to Mayor and Council loud and clear. No private dock on our beach in exchange for a pathway across the bottom of 1160. The proposal put forward by the property owners would be to the detriment of the community, not to its benefit. As you are aware, up to today, 60 letters and 11 public comments in opposition to this proposal for a private dock have been voiced to council, submissions requesting council to deny this DVP at Ecclestone and uphold the existing zoning requirements. By contrast, not counting letters from the applicants themselves, there have been 5 letters in support of the dock. Some submissions are from the same individuals. One of the parties in favor of granting the DVP have erected deterrence on a right-of-way to another public beach adjacent to their property, preventing the community from accessing that beach. The applicants have now submitted a lengthy letter from a lawyer they've hired, claiming that the so-called solution offered by them would benefit everyone. This letter is tone deaf to the truth of what our community is actually saying about their proposal, which is that it does not align with the values of the community and it's not supported. Further, the letter contains no compelling argument that their client is in any way entitled to a private dock DVP on our neighborhood beach. Our zoning bylaws say if you meet the requirements, you can build a dock, and their proposal clearly does not. If a property with a dock is a priority for the applicants, there are other properties on Bowen where a dock would be permitted. In the meantime, our community has come out strongly in support of an alternative option to secure public access to Ecclestone Beach via the creation of a legal, safe, and eminently doable public staircase leading from Ecclestone Road right-of-way down to the foreshore. Currently, we're in discussion with Flinro to acquire the necessary permits. It's important to note that the siting of the proposed private dock on the foreshore potentially impedes the public access route to the beach via the staircase. In order that the professional designs and cost estimates for the staircase can be prepared and submitted to the municipality prior to June the 14th, this evening, we are respectfully requesting from Mayor and Council an extension of the DVP decision until June the 14th, 2021. We thank the Planning Department for also making this same recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian.
Next, we have Hilary Butler regarding the same.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. My husband and I are longtime residents of Miller's Landing and lovers of Ecclestone Beach. We have submitted 2 previous letters, and so I just wish to give you a few comments to add to that correspondence about the ongoing variance application. Firstly, given the very detailed letter from West Coast Environmental Law regarding the above, we would be very surprised if council were to approve the application, given the fact that it oversteps all the the provincial, Islands Trust, and OCP regulations and guidelines regarding docks on and near public beaches. And I quote from this letter from West Coast Environmental Law: "The zoning variance requested is contrary to the Bowen Island OCP and Islands Trust objectives that anchor the Bowen Island Municipality land use bylaw, in particular those related to shoreline protection and the recreational and aesthetic values associated with community enjoyment of and access to public beaches." Secondly, we understand that the applicant would be very happy to give beach users a right of way beside the dock in order to access the beach. Having used this right of way for years and understanding that the access was granted by a previous property owner in return for an agreement with the municipality, and we may have been wrong, we feel that this right of way actually should be reinstituted without the imposition of a dock right next to this beach. We feel very strongly that council should decline this application for the above 2 reasons, but also because of the strength of the protest that this has aroused on Bowen Island in general. We understand that an application for an extension of these considerations until June 14 council meeting has been made because Friends of Ecclestone Beach are investigating the possible construction of a steel staircase to provide access to the beach. If the application for variance is declined by council and the only access to the beach would be the staircase, we would support its construction. That is, if it is approved by all the appropriate parties. And we know that a lot of work is being done in order to ascertain this. We also feel strongly that this construction should be primarily a BIM project with funding coming from grants and donations from the Bowen Island community as a whole, not as a project privately funded by local neighbors, as this would create a precedent that would not be a good thing. In conclusion, we repeat that we definitely reject the idea of another dock in this very small cove and hope that you will consider the extension of voting on this contentious issue until June 14 council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary.
Next, we have Nerys Poole regarding the Ecclestone Beach variance.
Nerys, welcome.
Thank you. And good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity to say a few words on the Ecclestone Beach issue. Your planner has recommended deferral of any decision until June 14th. Please follow this advice. I submitted a letter today from the Conservancy on behalf of the Conservancy Board And you also have the November letter that went to the province stating the reasons for refusing a dock on this beach. For now, I wish to speak as an individual who has experienced the negative effects of a council that is more concerned about private property interests than the public interest. 20 years ago, I appeared before the Council of the Day. It was the first BIM council after incorporation. I appeared on behalf of a group of property owners in Eagle Cliff to ask council to enforce the bylaws that prohibited any structures at the high water mark. A waterfront owner had illegally built a deck that loomed over the popular and well-used little public beach. And then the property owner had the nerve to threaten legal action against the municipality if it was ordered to remove the deck. Council of the Day waffled, made some small adjustment that did not change the result. A deck that to this day continues to loom over this little beach, a beach that I rarely visit now because of the deck. Every year, I hope a winter storm will do the job that council should have done 20 years ago. It hasn't happened yet. As Heather Hodson noted in her excellent letter in this week's Undercurrent, I quote, "The proposed dock will remain a permanent scar for decades to come, devaluing the rights of the public and fragile sea life." I ask you, when making your decision on this dock, to do your job in upholding the public interest, protect this beach for the neighborhood, and to have the courage to say no to the interests of one private property owner. Thank you.
Thank you, Nerys.
Next, we have Heather Hodson regarding the Ecclestone Beach variance.
Heather, welcome.
Hello, everyone. It's me again. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm sorry, the sun is in my eyes. I'll try and keep going here. It'll be short. Extending your vote to June 14th on the variance application for the proposed dock is not perhaps the easiest decision that you will make this evening, but we believe it should be. The people have spoken out clearly against granting this variance. Allowing this private dock to go forward in a so-called trade that will ostensibly ensure public access on the short path at the foot of 1160 Ecclestone is not a win-win for any of the stakeholders except the property owners. This should not be regarded as a gift exchange. The protection of public access under our bylaws is expected. The dock will not be a benign addition to Ecclestone Beach or to Mannion Bay for that matter, and it will certainly not be invisible. The idea of the staircase is not to be able to walk under a dock. We ask you to uphold our bylaws and to respect the need to enforce them vigorously on our behalf when they are under threat. We believe that it is your job. Contrary to the applicant's legal rebuttal to the West Coast Environmental Legal Opinion, the proposed dock does not align with maintaining the value and policy objectives in the land use bylaw. The staircase is a viable alternative, and I believe the municipality should just say no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather. Hope.
Sorry about that. Now, next we have Steve. I don't have a last name, but I think Danny Gifford is associated, and it's regarding 205 Highland Trail.
All right, welcome, Steve.
Hi, it's Steve Clippingdale, and I'm talking on behalf of Danny Gifford. I'd like to thank Mayor and Council for coming by and taking a look at the property at 205 Highland Trail. As I think everyone saw, it's an extremely steep road up there, and the access to the lot is extremely challenging. And the topography is all rock, so it's pretty hard to get the access to the lot. In going ahead and building the let's call it parking space, we made the mistake of not understanding how road setbacks work. Assuming that there's just so many feet on each side of the road, and it turns out it was a 66-foot road, and most of the setback was on the one side of the road where we built the parking. So that was our mistake. We have worked with staff to make things right, to make sure the parking space is safe. We've done a geotech report. We've done a structural engineering report for the wall. We've done a civil engineering report for the water line to make sure it's safe, and we're going to upgrade that to make sure it's more secure and better insulated. And the last thing is we've done a bunch of surveys as well. The other issue is we have agreed to a land swap, since part of the road that goes up Highland Trail turns out was built on Danny's property some 30 or 40 years ago. And for that land swap, Danny will pay for the cost of the survey, which is quite expensive because it's a road dedication rather than a easement, and then the legal costs associated with that as well. We also agreed to pay for the staff costs, I think Rachel's costs, because it took so long to get all this done. We've been working on this for the last couple of years. Another issue is the Highland Trail residents are currently building want to redo the road and cement it. So that is going ahead. I think it's been delayed, but without the property swap, they would hopefully get our permission to go ahead. And the last thing is our intention is to come up with a solution that everybody wins, including the muni, the taxpayers, the Highland Trail residents, and Danny. Property value will help have parking and the access for her current tenant. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Next, we Anne Franc de Ferriere.
All right.
Just regarding a general comment.
Okay, thank you. Anne, welcome.
Yeah, I'm on mute.
Yeah, okay.
Your worship and ladies and gentlemen councillors, I attended the April 26th meeting via Zoom, and I have a few remarks regarding the length of the meeting. First, I especially wanted to have procedural confirmation about the proposed housekeeping land use bylaw amendment number 528/2020. I had sent a fax to Daniel Martin asking that question, and I'm still waiting for his answer. Item 7.3 was removed from the proceeding and it was deferred to, I don't know. I checked the minutes of the meeting and there is no mention of the item. My questions are procedural. How are you going to handle the public meeting? How is the public going to be involved? And how is the public input going to be handled and by whom? After all, it is a large document. It's 22-page long. Item 6.1, the development variance permit application was presented. Councillor Kale went at great length to stress the importance of taking the neighbor's opinion into consideration. A lengthy discussion followed. Then Councillor Fast asked for a 2-minute break, and Councillor Morris noted that any attention span dwindles after 20 minutes. Then the second item of interest to me was presented by Liam Edwards. It was about the progresses of the planned community center. Being a founding member of the Boyne Island Arts Council, I was very happy to learn about the progresses, but the discussion that followed was too late in the evening for me and left the virtual meeting. I was later told that the meeting ended at 11:45 p.m., 10:45 p.m. And so my question is it really necessary to have meetings that end late at night? Do you really expect to be sharp and alert after a certain time? Some of you will remember that Councillor Dunn point of having daytime and evening time meetings because he's not a night owl. Since some councillors have to be up at the crack of dawn on the day the next day on the first ferry to be at work. Meetings ending late at night are an evident inconvenience, and daytime meetings are out of question for them as they are working daytime. To conclude, please plan council meetings to be reasonably short. And you announced today that your meeting is going to be long. I don't think it's very reasonable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anne, and we'll take those into consideration. We don't like long meetings any more than you do, believe me. Okay, Hope.
Next, we have Jim Mullin regarding 205 Highland Trail.
All right. Welcome,
Jim, are you there?
Jim.
Appears not.
Let's, we can always come back. Hope, you want to go to the,
Next, we have Trish Jacquet regarding
Okay.
the Ecclestone Beach variance.
hi, Trish, welcome. Go ahead.
Mayor Ander, council members, good evening. Hello. The April 26th council meeting basically to me said it all. Bob Turner is correct in saying the SROW and the dock are two separate issues and should be treated separately. No trading the SROW for a dock application. This is not a land deal and a very sensitive, treated separately. Oh, sorry, lost my way. This is not a land deal, a very sensitive subject for all parties. Approximately there's 45 nays and 5 yays, out of which one was the landowner and their lawyer. To me, those would not even want to be counted. The DVP requires BIM to ask the neighbors input within 100 meters and received an overwhelming island response of no. It was suggested at the April 12th council meeting that the DVP be sent out to residents within 500 meters, and still BIM received responses from as far as the west side of the island. It is pretty clear statement what the neighbors and the Bowen community feel towards the trade deal of a 30-foot beach pathway for a dock. If the neighbors are not in favor of the SROW and they say they will not use the beach, it makes no sense for BIM to continue on this path. This deal is not in the best interest for BIM to invest time or money for a 30-foot pathway when BIM owns the land adjacent to the applicant. BIM created the bylaws and asked for the DVP. In order to respect the DVP and respect the neighbors' input, the answer is clear. No to dock and SRO and begin a new application only for the dock. Possibly making the dock more suitable as a summer recreation dock to the size of the existing beach and the neighboring dock. Applicant at 1160 agrees to allow the neighbors / public to sign maybe a waiver and continue to use the beach since the beginning of time. And council has no claim to the SROW, which takes all the pressure off BIM. And just as a side note, on Saturday for about 3 hours, there happened to be 2 sea lions playing quite happily right where the dock would be located. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish.
Next, we have Kristen Watson regarding the local area expansion policy.
Thank you. Kristen, welcome. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to take a few moments to acknowledge the work of Patrick and Daniel that they put into amending this policy. I think it's great work and I'm really supportive of it. Specifically, I'd like to point out that I think the inclusion of the part where it's describing that the policy will apply in the case where an applicant is asking for upzoning, even though they're already existing within the local service area. I think that's a fabulous addition to this policy, as well as the inclusion of, I think it's point 7, which recommends that council, in the cases where they may, for whatever reason, want to waive the contribution in exchange for something else that may be of benefit for the entire island, that payment then come from the general fund, so that it's not the cost of waiving that payment isn't borne specifically by the people that live within the local service area. So I just wanted to take the time to let you know that I think the work that's been done is great. And I have 2 questions about it, which I'm hoping perhaps that Daniel may be able to address in his presentation of the report a bit later. And the first is because it's just not clear to me, I probably missed it, but will that financial formula will it be updated each year based on the prior year's closing balances of the reserve funds and the net book value of the assets and that kind of thing? So will that be an ongoing annual event that formula is updated? And my second question is, would he please, or Patrick or whoever could, would one of them please speak to the formula itself in the denominator of the formula? It adds the population that's contemplated being added. So what that does is actually reduce the contribution. So in my mind, it would make sense that the population as it stands when the new property is being joined is the value of the denominator. But the formula does indicate that it should be the entire new local expansion area. And I probably haven't made myself very clear, and I'm sorry, but I'm sure if they look at it, they'll know what I'm getting at. And if either one of them could speak to that during their report, I would really just appreciate hearing more about that. And lastly, I wasn't going to address council without just taking a moment to say I was really looking forward this weekend to sitting down with my coffee and looking at the audited financial statements. And I am a bit disappointed that they didn't make it onto the agenda in time. So when will the public have the opportunity to look at the financial statements? And that's it for me.
All right, thank you, Kristen, and appreciate your comments, and we'll see if we can work those in with Daniel's report this afternoon, or tonight, I'm sorry, yeah, later tonight. Thank you.
It looks like Jim Mullin has joined us. So Jim,
oh, great.
Speak in relation to 205 Highland Trail. You can do that now.
Okay. Jim, welcome and go.
Thanks very much. I appreciate your time, both the council, the mayor, and the staff. Try to keep this inside 2 minutes. We're at the foot of Highland Trail, and we're subject to the impacts of development on the hillside. We are, though, supporting the variances for both public works regarding the public's the parking spaces in the household and completing the deck in question for 205 Highland Trail. However, we feel it's pretty crucial from our perspective to make you aware of some of the items of concern that we have. Regarding the public works project, we require some assurances that the trees that are currently within the easement of Eagle Cliff Road remain in place. There's been some notable logging and deforestation on the hillside in the two properties above our home over the last little while. And our ability to enjoy our home has been diminished due to these properties having a direct eye line into our kitchen window and deck, with significantly increased noise and light pollution. We request that BIM requires a green barrier or a fence on the parking location to prevent headlights from shining directly into our living space. We request that in any land swap, that none of the trees on the easement adjacent to Eagle Cliff remain in place and they're not topped or thinned. We are directly at the foot of Highland Trail, as we mentioned, so we require assurance that any runoff from the newly paved road does not directly impact our home. As for the deck, we're supportive of the completion of the project, as mentioned, as long as there's no further extension of the deck. Gross issue all of us have to contend with, but maintenance of privacy and the right to enjoy one's home should be of paramount importance, and we're sure that our neighbor, our staff, and council will find these requests reasonable. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Jim. And we'll see if we can't get those some answers to those questions tonight for you. Thank you.
That concludes public comment for tonight.
That's it. Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, I am also on the public comment list. I sent in I'm Richard Wiefflespuett.
I'm sorry, who's that?
6 o'clock. I come in as home office because I can't put my video on. That's Richard Wiefflespuett, and I sent you an email, hope, before 6 p.m. today.
Oh, I apologize, Richard. I'm just seeing it now.
Great.
All right, well, go ahead then, Richard, and welcome.
So, hi, good evening, and thanks for having me still. I'm talking also to the development variance permit application for Ecclestone Drive. I'm opposed to granting such a permit for a number of reasons. The property in question has a history of non-compliances that were well documented in the legal letter provided by Barton Law, addressed to Mayor and Council on May 6th. And while these violations have occurred in the past, they have not been rectified by the current owners. On this basis alone, the consideration of additional privileges for this particular property is simply out of place. Further, the requested variance permit will support a dock application that also violates many of the criteria and bylaws established for private docks on Bowen Island. There are design issues, but most importantly, the dock will divide, if not destroy, a public beach that has been enjoyed by generations of innocent beachgoers, bathers, and boaters. Figuratively and literally, there's no room for such an unnatural structure on this special pocket beach, and there are simply no reasonable arguments for harming the greater public good in favor of very particular private interests. And finally, it strikes me as simply absurd that municipal staff spends time and money to obtain a legal opinion that vilifies generations of innocent beachgoers, bathers, and boaters as trespassers. Given the vibrant and at times volatile relationship between Bowen Island and private docks, it is clear from the start that this application will fail. So it is my view that only a lack of municipal leadership would permit such frivolous waste of staff time and money. So in closing, I'm asking Mayor and Council to show some leadership and reject this application. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks very much, Richard.
Mayor Andrew, there was one additional public comment.
Okay.
Robert Wood would like to speak regarding the Cove Bay parcel tax.
Okay, wonderful. Robert, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm not sure how well you can hear me because I'm having very poor reception on the meeting when I have the thing up on the screen. I had a conversation today about what is proposed, and I was concerned on two counts, which I expressed in a conversation earlier today with, I believe it was Raj. I was concerned that we hadn't had a lot of time to digest the information being put forward, as only within the last week or so I became aware of what's being proposed. I see from the agenda that you have two motions on the agenda, one 546, 547, I believe. I'm wondering if those can be delayed, because today I had a conversation with our co-op lawyer with respect to these parcels when co-ops are involved. And he's experienced in this because that's the only aspect of what he deals with. And obviously I haven't had any response from him yet. And I would like to get that before you make a final decision on these two bylaws. So that's my comment and my request that they be deferred at least for 1 month.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, thank you for that, Robert. Sorry, Hope?
It's Sue Ellen here. I'm wondering
Oh, Sue Ellen, yeah.
if Robert Wood could tell us which group he's involved with, just for the record.
I'm the president of the Bowen Island Seniors Housing Co-op.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Anything more, Hope?
You're welcome.
No, that is all for real this time.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, members of the public. You can continue on the YouTube channel now. And we're going to move into the consent agenda. And does anybody in council have anything on the consent agenda that they would like explained or that they're not happy with? Excuse me.
It's Sue Ellen here. Just
okay, Sue Ellen, go ahead.
Where would you like to move those 12.2 and 12.6 info items to then? Where would they go? If I pull them, is now the time to do it?
Yeah.
They'd go under section 4, items removed from consent agenda, wouldn't they?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, they should, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What were those numbers again, Sue Ellen?
12.2, which is the letter from Rosemary Knight about Mount Gardner Trails, and 12.6, which is the letter from Sea to Sky to Council about the visual quality objectives, which relate to visibility of logging clear cuts from viewpoints.
Okay, thank you. Allison?
I would like to pull 12.7 sub C, which is the chair's update for Metro Vancouver. Outdoor burning, or
Okay, thank
stove,
you.
fireplace, indoor fireplace, excuse me.
Oh, boy. Okay, anybody else out there?
Yes.
Okay, Maureen?
A quick question regarding 3.9.
Okay, 3.9. Maureen? And anybody else? Okay, I don't see anybody's hand up, so the recommendation is the council approve the items as outlined in the May 10th, 2021 consent agenda as amended. I'll move that.
Second.
Okay, thanks, Allison. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're good. And okay, so we'll start right in on those issues. And the first one is going to be, let's make it 3.9 to Maureen.
Thank you. I just had I support the recommendation, let's say that. I just had a question concerning the criteria for Bowen Municipality serving as the community charitable partner. In what circumstances do we do that?
Good question.
I can speak to that briefly if you like, or Liam, you go ahead.
Go ahead, Hope.
Just in past, we've done this with organizations such as Birch for receiving grant funds. We've also partnered with the Bowen Island Community Foundation for receiving funds from the Vancouver Foundation for certain programs like the Youth at Risk Fund, as well as the Neighborhood Small Grants Program. We've also partnered with there's various other groups that that don't have charitable status through CRA, and they need a community partner in order to receive the funds. So we receive them and then we disperse them on their behalf.
Okay, so my follow-up question is, in what circumstances do we decline to serve as a community charitable partner for an organization?
We generally weigh on the side of declining, Maureen, because every time we act as a pass-through entity, passing on or becoming a charitable partner, we put our charitable status at risk. So we should not be using our charitable status to flow funds through the organization to other organizations as such. That's not looked upon kindly by Revenue Canada. They issue us a charitable number to accept charitable donations for the municipality and not to pass funds through to other organizations. We've actually had the auditors look at this in the past and they've advised against it as well. So I tend to err on the side of caution and almost always say no. Unless,
okay, I guess the question is why are we accepting this one, Raj?
Well, they usually typically come to council in the form of a letter of request from an organization, and at that point, it's a decision of council. I can let Jillian speak to this. She's the staff involved.
Okay, Jillian, welcome.
Hi. Thanks, Mayor and Council. I will just full on admit that this was a situation that I didn't understand due process, and I was asked, it was fairly early on in my employment, and I was asked by the club to do this and was told they'd done it many times in the past, and it was at the recommendation of the community foundation. So I said yes, inappropriately without bringing it to council first is what happened. So now we're just trying to sort of remedy the situation.
As I said, I have no objection to the recommendation. I do, though, have sympathy for some of the community organizations that have been declined the opportunity for a community charitable partner. And I think it might be useful to be, for there to be a bit more clarity and transparency around when we say yes and when we say no. And with that, I'll move the recommendation. Whereas the Bowen Island Football Club is a successful recipient of $2,500 in grant funding from the Bowen Island Community Foundation's Community Impact Fund, And whereas the Bowen Island Football Club has requested via staff for BIM to act as its community charitable partner to receive and disperse grant funds on behalf of the football club. Therefore be it resolved that council authorize staff to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the football club for receipt and disbursement of such grant funds. So I'll move that.
I'll second it. Okay. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to Sue Ellen and your 12.2, 12.6 and the information items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The 12.2 is a letter from Rosemary Knight asking about the Mount Gardner trails and the non-motorized status. And she's heard recently that after council's resolution and commitment to keeping it as, or doing our best to keep it as non-motorized, that there has been another partnership announced. And so she's asking how did this happen? What can we do? And I just wanted to bring this letter to council's attention and see if we can provide the community with any information.
Liam, can you update that at all?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Councillor Fast and Mayor. So we have been in dialogue directly with staff at Forestlands Natural Resource Operations on this issue for several months now, and it's been really good dialogue, and they've assured us that they're taking the matter under due consideration, and they're going through their internal processes and due diligence to come up with a decision to move forward with council's request to ensure that the trails on Mount Gardner are for non-motorized use, excluding emergency needs as may be necessary. And we're hopeful that we'll get a decision returned to us and more clarity on that decision or anything else that might be required to help them with that decision. And it feels like it's imminent, but it's felt imminent for weeks now. And every time we check in with them, we're encouraged by the message, but we don't have clarity about the timing or the answer.
So we're still standing by.
Correct.
And,
yes.
And the announcement about the further partnership agreement with the 3 island groups.
Right. So that was a misstep on their part, where the local officer issued the renewal agreements because they expired, and that due process would have just been to extend them and reinstate them, and wasn't aware that more senior staff had actually been in discussions with municipal staff, and that those were not to be reissued and extended at this time. And so it's one of those situations where the province sends out the agreement and asks the partner to sign them and resubmit them, and the agreements have no effect until they're signed by the province, and the province has not signed them, and those partners, the 3 partners, should have been informed that the agreements have no effect. But I think it got out. They got excited because they got the agreements in their hands. They signed it and they said, "Okay, we're good to go." But in actuality, they don't have effect.
Thank you. That helps. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks, Sue Ellen. 12.6 in.
Yep, 12.6. This is when we were last. Some of our municipal colleagues here were at the last How Sound Community Forum, and there we saw a presentation by the by the forestry group, who are the people from BC Forests, who are redesigning, and Hope, I sent you a map earlier, if you could put it up. They're looking at visual quality objectives. They're renewing those. There's a consultation that's been extended now. And I was hoping, because Bowen Island shows on the map, but no viewpoints from Mount Gardner, from any of those beautiful viewpoints up there, or from the Mount Gardner dock, or from any of the beaches. That's the map. And you can see the views that they were looking at things from, the little dots, and then the red lines are the views they were looking at. They use this information to design the next bunch of clear-cut blocks so that to find the best compromise. But Bowen Island down there is in a different forest district, and we weren't asked. And yet the sightlines from the viewpoints on Mount Gardner and the Mount Gardner dock, and maybe some others, could be affected by big clear-cut blocks on the Sunshine Coast. And so I was going to ask if council could request staff to submit input into that BC Forest consultation. If other members of council think that that's worth doing. I see Liam has his hand up.
Councillor Fast, I would be happy to submit a letter on behalf of council if council so wishes. I did want to clarify that the sight lines are all taken from sea level. And so none of the visual effect parameters are taken from consideration from on mountaintops like the top of Mount Gardner, which is a really good point. But as is, you'll notice there's no sight lines that start from the Dakota Ridge, for example, above Gibson's, and they're all taken from a sea level vantage point of view. But it's a good point worth raising.
Well, thank you. If you need a motion, let me know. But otherwise, I think it would be great if you would include that idea about taking sightlines from known popular viewpoints, because those are part of the reason people come to Bowen and to hike up there, and they're only getting more popular through time. So I think that's great. Do you need a motion, or would you just send a letter? I think we might have lost our mayor. Where is he? There he is.
He's just
To me, a motion would have more weight. If you could say that council has asked me to write.
Then I would like to ask that I'll move that council request staff to prepare a submission to the consultation for visual quality objectives for the Sunshine Coast as referenced in item 12.6, the letter from sea to sky, and submit it with regards to public viewpoints on Mount Gardner, the Mount Gardner dock, and other public viewpoints.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Gary's just coming back to us. Any more discussion? Okay, Gary, do you want to call the question? I don't think he can hear us yet.
He's still connecting to audio, so.
Yeah. Just for those of you who weren't there, that apparently what I hear from the island's trust side of things, who are involved with the viewpoints on the other islands, Anvil and Gambier, is that the consultation has been extended. And so there's a new date, and I don't know exactly what that is, but our Claire Frater at the Islands Trust, for example, would know, or I'm sure My Sea to Sky would know, who have written us the letter. So Gary's still connecting there. Can I go ahead and call the question?
I wonder whether we can just give him 1 minute.
Yeah.
Just give him a minute here.
Well, maybe while we're waiting for him to come, I can start talking about my items, because I'm feeling very sympathetic for poor Adam, who's sitting waiting for us to do his delegation, which he was on for back at 6:45. I wanted to pull 12.7C, which is the report from the chair of the Metro Vancouver Board. And the reason I wanted to pull it was item 5 in that chair's report, which is to do with residential wood burning restrictions. And if I am reading them correctly, that as of May 15th, we are not going to be allowed to use our wood stoves or fireplaces on Bowen Island until September the 15th. So I just want to raise that, and maybe we can have some staff follow up just to confirm that I'm reading it correctly. And if so, to get the word out via Sophie and whatever.
Right, we can follow up with that on that issue, Councillor Morris, and get clarification.
Maybe we still need to go ahead with, oh. Can we do the vote without Gary so we can get on with the delegation? Who's acting mayor?
Yeah, do we have that at hand?
Yeah.
I'll have to just pull that
One
up.
second. I want to say it's, just give me 1 second.
Gary's holding up his phone, but we can't see the screen, Gary.
I can give him a call in just 1 moment.
Mhm.
For May, it's Councillor Nicholson.
Maureen, you're on.
Okay, thank you. So going back to Sue Ellen's motion, which I believe has been moved and seconded, may I call the vote? All those in favor of Sue Ellen's motion?
Aye.
Where's Rob? Yeah. And
Mayor Andrews voting in the affirmative.
voting in favor, I believe, and no abstentions.
Oh,
No.
now we've got it coming on in.
Great. Okay, so the motion passes. And
Thank you.
for Allison's request to staff to follow up, we'll leave that as a letter. I don't think.
It's not a letter, it's we need to know whether I've interpreted it correctly. And if we have, then we have to get the word out.
Okay, so a check-in by staff and then some follow-up by Sophie Itzinga if there's public communication needed. Okay, so I think that's everything on the consent agenda. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So now I'm pleased to move on to the delegations and welcome Corporal Adam Coley. Is that how you say your name, Adam? Can't hear you.
Close enough.
And are you joined by Sergeant Banks?
I think it's Staff Sergeant Bradley. Hi, everyone.
Bradley. So, oh, there you are. Okay, welcome.
Hey, Gareth.
So I understand you have a presentation to make to council and community. So if you'd like to take it away.
Thank you.
Everyone,
thank
see
you
my
guys,
screen?
and I'm back, Maureen. So thank you very much for cutting in there. I had a total shutdown here. So back up and running. And welcome, Adam and Gareth.
Good evening.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, it looks good.
Oh, now it's YouTube.
Oh, sorry.
Now we're looking at your screen and there we go.
There we go.
All right.
Geez, sorry. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Hang on, bear with me.
Technical gremlins.
Sorry.
Tonight.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate your help. So tonight I'm going to be presenting our annual strategic plan. The RCMP uses the strategic plan and the annual performance plan to detail what our goals will be throughout the year, how we're going to achieve those goals, and then through the annual performance plan to document our progress. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that we have living on an island, as everyone knows. Statistics from 2020 and going forward into 2021. So the next slide is just a detail of who our team leaders are. And I realized that I didn't change the heading at the top. So this was taken from the Whistler one, but it's not the same people. So in the Sea to Sky, within the last few weeks, we've received our new inspector. So we just received a new big boss, Robert Dykstra. The South Zone Commander, Staff Sergeant Bradley, who's joining us today. That's my boss. So hopefully I'm doing well. Operations NCO is Sergeant Dan Pollock. General Investigations Section Head, Jeff Shore. And then your Bowen Island RCMP, myself, Constable Copeland, and Constable Notari, who some of you may know. And then the Sea to Sky admin manager who makes everything possible for us is Amanda Daly. She's very patient. So the strategic plan framework, the plan's developed with partners, stakeholders, and community members. Locally, provincially, and even nationally, we'll use some of the policing priorities to make our strategic plan for the year. Our fiscal year runs between April and March, which is a little bit counterintuitive, but that's how it works. And again, although very similar, the differences between the strategic plan is what our goals are throughout the year, and then the annual performance plan is how we document our progress. Guiding principles and priorities, enhancing public safety, obviously. Accountability and good governance. We're constantly trying to better ourselves, and one of the ways we do that is through unit level quality assurance processes. We're forced to work within legislation, and a lot of our conduct is governed by the IIO and the RCMP, and now we've actually got a union in place, which is changing things slightly as well. Some of the challenges involve our geography, obviously. The ferry cancellations we're all subjected to over the last few days. Big shifts due to COVID, shifts in the number of tourists, the number of seasonal residents, etc. Our roles on the island as police are very different than they would be in the city as well. It's one of the challenges we face. So today, for example, beginning of my shift in the morning, I was down trying to manage the traffic at the ferry. And at the end of the day, I was coaching kids baseball. So it was a very diverse day. We work through, this is a graphic just detailing the strategic plan for this year. Again, each of the tasks that we have planned are listed at the bottom part, and then the pillars, as we call them, are the top portion. So crime reduction, road safety, community outreach, and employee investment. The pillars each have a member that's assigned to them to kind of manage the improvements. So crime reduction is being headed up by Jeff Shore. Road safety was Sergeant Banks. Community outreach and engagement is Staff Sergeant Bradley. And then investing in our people is also Staff Sergeant Bradley. He's a very busy man. So talking about crime reduction, Paolo found this picture. This is, I don't know if anybody remembers Bud Bishop. So this was the summer of 1980. I guess they seized all this stuff from one of the cottages down at the marina. They got a search warrant and arrested somebody. I thought that was kind of neat, so I wanted to include that. Enforcement obviously is one of our roles. Increasing intelligent-led policing is something that the RCMP has been trying to do. Within the last year, the Sea to Sky RCMP has put together a business case for a regional crime analyst, which is something that we've been lacking. We've had an analyst out of E Division provincially, but we don't have someone dedicated to the Sea to Sky full-time, so that'll be a big improvement. Locally, I think the local RCMP on Bowen are very knowledgeable of our offenders and their history, their families, where they live. We get to know people pretty well here. Planning for events, ops plans for things like Bowfest, that kind of stuff. It's done in collaboration with the liquor board, some of our other partners. Conservation's been very active over here in the last few months. Commercial vehicle inspectors, fisheries, and actually Canada Border Services has been over here quite a bit in terms of COVID enforcement. They're looking at some of the US citizens who've been traveling back and forth, either by boat or in vehicles. Education and prevention, as I said, partnering with the liquor board for some of the special event permits, and then working with BC Ferries. Again, this was a challenge this week, but I think on Saturday we saw an improvement over the last ferry cancellation, and that was just through collaboration and communication between the RCMP local, well, not just the RCMP, but Bowen locally and BC Ferries. So the last cancellation on Saturday was not as smooth as this week. Sunday was different, but Saturday was good. Youth, we worked a little bit with BC Ambulance, the fire department, and some of the community paramedics in the wintertime to make a 911 video that went through the elementary school, just detailing when kids should call 911, when it was okay to, and when it was better to just find a parent or talk to an adult. We've been actively participating in some of the school lockdowns. I had a really interesting experience. I went to IPS for a Covenant House event and got to sit down with the kids around a fire and just discuss some of their experiences and really interact with them. So that was very interesting for me. And then again, just attending BICS, increasing some of the patrols there. It's been a little bit difficult with COVID. We haven't been able to get into the schools as much, but we're going to keep trying to do that. This was me after breaking my foot. I won't explain how I did that because it's embarrassing. Documenting some of the traffic enforcement, some of the school zone speed enforcement that we've been doing again, just to try and improve some of the road safety. I'm going to try and get one of these constable scarecrows over here because it's quite entertaining watching people slow down and then realizing that it's a statue. And then again, partnering with the commercial vehicle inspectors because they don't come over and check a lot of the bigger trucks. We've had a few incidents in the last few years where large vehicles have lost air brakes or something and gone into the ditch. Nobody's been injured, thank goodness, but it's enough to raise some warning bells. Constable Copeland's gone through some of the collision analyst training. We've used that a number of times. And then we've been forced to adapt to some of the decriminalization or legalization of marijuana when it comes to impaired driving. So we've had to do standard field sobriety training. Always working with ICBC in terms of kind of resourcing some of the stuff that they've been able to give us. And then I've been in communication with Emma quite a bit about some of the traffic mitigation plans that you guys have been working on. And that seems to have been received quite well. Youth, again, speed zone enforcement. And once we're able to get back into the schools, I think the alcohol and marijuana goggles that we have are always a hit. Kids put on these goggles and try and walk a straight line. It's entertaining. Not for the kids, we find it entertaining. Then hope if we could skip ahead to community engagement. Yeah, there we go. That was last summer, I think. One of the Squamish Nations naming ceremonies. That's Constable Kelly Dean. He's from the Integrated First Nations unit, and Constable Copeland down on the dock with a few Squamish Nation elders. In terms of enforcement and engagement, we're going to be trying to continue proactive patrols. I'm trying to improve on our access to the water and doing more boat patrols. We'll have a small boat here in the next few weeks. Work on increasing roadblocks. That's been a bit difficult again with COVID. Smelling alcohol through a mask is tough, but we're going to try and make that work as the summer comes on. We see more tourists to deter impaired driving. Again, working with Canada Border Services and the RCMP's West Coast Marine. They're based out of Nanaimo, and they're kind of our marine component for the West Coast. It's, they're very good, but they're stretched a bit thin. So we try and get them here when we can. We have some safe boating programs and pamphlets. May is actually Safe Boating Month, so we'll be working through some of that. Participating with the Canada Day video, that was an adventure this year. Remembrance Day was a bit different, but we still managed to get out and do that. And then I got to be one of the judges in the Bowfest parade. It was a great honor. Don't know if I was good, but I did my best. Increased attendance by the First Nations unit. So again, Kelly Dean, he's been over here quite a bit on the boat. And just trying to increase that presence and some of the knowledge within the community. And then working with Bylaws, we tend to have a good relationship with the local bylaws, and we've been trying to manage different situations. I just talked to Bonnie today about dogs and cars. We haven't seen that in a bit. But we're starting to get hot dogs again. One of the things that I've been doing is developing a business case to apply to the Federal Treasury Board for a vessel for Bowen Island, because I think we need a patrol boat here. But we'll see. Education and prevention. Again, working with BC Ambulance and the Coast Guard. We did a joint operation this year with those guys in the fire department in anticipation of having to move a patient from Bowen Island to, I think, Vancouver General in inclement weather. If the ferry isn't running and they can't use the air ambulance, how would we get someone from here to Vancouver for emergency treatment? Operational plans for some of the events, which didn't happen last year, but hopefully will start coming back. We'll have Loggers Fest and baseball tournament and start working through some of that. Halloween was a bit different this year. Hopefully we'll get back to that and we'll be able to participate in traffic control and some of the events down in the Melmore Loop there. I know my first year here, my family really enjoyed that. That was really neat for them. And then a community consultative group strat plan survey, I think, went out as part of the consultation piece earlier in the year. I don't know if you guys remember that. Investing in our people. To me, this is probably one of the bigger ones, because if we have the capabilities and the equipment that we need, we're better able to service the community. Part of that's just recognition of some of the work that the guys have been doing through, we call them 1004s, they're just a performance document. So if you do a good job, you tend to mark it down and put it on your personnel file. Some of the personal issued equipment that we've had issued in the last few years is stuff that I've never seen before. We had first aid kits go out to each member that have been utilized in pretty traumatic situations that are very amazing. And that was through a lot of hard work from Squamish getting into that finance aspect. Another piece was, so Gareth and the old inspector within the region realized that there weren't really RCMP designated psychologists in the Sea to Sky, and they did a huge amount of work going through the bureaucratic processes required to get some local psychologists approved for the membership. So we actually have the ability to go and speak to a psychologist now and get our mental health fixed up. So again, we're better able to manage things for the community. I went through something called peer-to-peer training in 2019, I believe. And again, it's more of a membership support thing where I'm able to help support the RCMP members around me. And then the big one within the last year was how we responded to COVID and our procurement of some of the PPE. That was a bit of a challenge. And I think locally we did quite a good job. It was a bit interesting bouncing back and forth at the beginning of the pandemic with RCMP federally. They thought they had equipment and then they didn't have equipment, and then we were all scrambling to get stuff. So it's been good here though. I have forward-thinking bosses. Resourcing, again, there was a business case put in for a crime analyst locally, which was a lot of work, but I think it's going to be good. I actually got to go on a boat course in Nanaimo earlier in the year. When we're speaking about education and training, some of that stuff is really neat. That was probably one of the neatest bits of training I've done in the last 10 years. Managed to get my 15-ton ticket, which is amazing. I can't believe I got paid to go do that. Locally, we've done a lot of kind of unique stuff, avalanche training, crevasse training, given our geography and some of the spaces that we have to get into for search and rescue calls or different challenging incidents like helicopter crashes out in the middle of the bush. We have people within the region who are now trained and skilled in certain things so we can access these areas and be an asset in these situations. The mental health aspect, again, there was a lot of work put into that. Some of the local training that the detachments have done is ongoing because we haven't really been able to train provincially. A lot of our regular training stuff has been held off because of COVID, so we've had to adapt to that. Another aspect that we've had in the last bit, our regular clerk, Melanie, was seconded by Service Canada to help look at some of the COVID relief frauds that have been occurring through the CRA and Service Canada. So we've had to train up an interim clerk in the meantime, who's doing really well, but as with anything, takes some training to get there. More highlights, crime reduction. In the last 2 years, we've had a domestic violence and sex assault investigative position filled. Locally, we've used that person a number of times to consult and kind of give us some guidance on files. So that's been a huge asset. We partnered with conservation quite a bit, as I said. They've been looking at some poaching on the south end of the island. And then we've gotten a few reports of US citizens, actually recently US vessels traveling up, large US vessels coming in from the States, not isolating. We've had to manage some of that in terms of COVID violations. We haven't issued a lot of tickets yet, but that is on the books. Road safety, again, roadblocks, impaired driving enforcement. Some of the media releases, Bronwyn from the Undercurrent and I are in communication quite often. I try and do a quick monthly thing with our stats, detailing some of the stuff that's been an issue. Last year during the refit on the boat, I put a little piece about talking to or respecting the flag person, slowing down for deer, that kind of stuff. Outreach engagement. I haven't heard anything back about the Treasury Board funding for the patrol vessel, but I'm hoping that'll come in the next few weeks. Adapting to some of the regulations for COVID has been a bit of a challenge, but we've tried to make do with that. The preparatory exercise with Coast Guard and the ambulance was, again, very, very interesting. Seeing the hovercraft landing down at the Bowfest field and kind of feeling the power of that thing coming up onto the grass was amazing. This year we had the opportunity to work with WorkSafe, Transport Canada, and the Transportation Safety Board for several different investigations. Squamish and Gareth specifically came up with a, again, for recognition of the membership, they came up with a challenge coin for the Sea to Sky members, which is It's kind of a neat graphic showing the Sea to Sky region on a coin that they've been handing out as kind of gratitude for job well done for specific things. And again, continued training for some of the unique situations we get into: boat, snowmobiles, avalanches, crevasse, some of the helicopter stuff we've had to do. We managed to all get vaccinated, I think towards the end of March, trying to remember. And again, work towards psychologists. This is just some of the photos. That's the hovercraft in Tunstall Bay. There's another picture that Paolo found of Bud Bishop at Bowfest in 1979, right in the middle. And the helicopter crash from the west side of Mount Gardner is down in the left. So we'll go on to some of the statistics. I don't know if you can see, but it seems like all the police files are on the roads or near them. There doesn't seem to be anything happening out in the woods, which is good. So some of the statistics are a bit skewed just based on the reporting structure. They changed in 2019. So I can try and explain why some numbers are a little bit higher between 2019 and 2020, but they're all fairly straightforward. So the first is statistics is violent crime. There wasn't a huge increase across the board in anything. If you look at sexual offenses, the number of sexual assaults hasn't actually increased, it decreased, and I'm not sure why the total number of offenses increased. But again, when we're looking at those offenses, they didn't have a significant increase compared to the last 5 years. Property crime, I looked into this a little bit just out of interest when the analyst sent this through. The bike thefts were up 300%, but it was not necessarily all actual thefts. It was someone had borrowed a bike and it was reported stolen, and then it got returned. I think there was only 2 bikes that were actually stolen last year. And the rest were all returned quite quickly. Break and enters, fairly straight across the board, not a huge increase. The one place that we did notice a large increase was with frauds, and those were telephone and internet frauds. So everybody's been getting the CRA phone calls, the Service Canada phone calls, and those scams don't seem to be going away. So we'll try and do a bit more awareness when it comes to that stuff in terms of media and working with Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, because that's not good. Drug offenses, we didn't see a huge increase. We saw an increase over 2019 in possession files. But again, with some of the shift in legalization of marijuana, the reporting structure is slightly different. So that statistic may be a little bit skewed based on those little bits of information. Other crime, we saw a big dip in people being intoxicated in a public place. And I think the significant change there was just COVID. People weren't out drinking in public, which is okay. That's good. Traffic safety. If you look at the number of collisions, they did go up slightly, but I don't think it was due to anything significant. I think it was just a few small fender benders. Nothing really to do with the weather or type of roads or anything. It's just we had a few more last year than we did the year before. Overall crime stats, the number of charges laid increased significantly, both traffic offenses and criminal charges. And I don't know why that was. I don't think there was that many more offenses. I think it was just diligent police work, if I can. The one thing that I would like to point out, a lot of jurisdictions with COVID did see a significant drop in call volume. We only had a 10% call volume drop, and that's in spite of the fact that we've had less tourism than normal. and less visitors. So the number of calls for service was pretty steady throughout 2020. And then going forward, we'll have a new strategic plan for the next 3 years. The new inspector is going to obviously have a huge influence over that. I have yet to meet him, so I'm looking forward to that. We're going to have to continue our partnership with the Public Health Agency, all our other partners that I mentioned throughout the presentation, specifically Bylaws. We'll try and maintain that relationship. We're going to try and increase the focus on seasonal policing and some of the specific assets required for that. As I mentioned, we'll try and procure a boat if we can, and then work on some of the safety on the water. And then adapting to how things are going with COVID as 2021 and the pandemic keeps rolling along. Continued work with BC Ferries. As we've learned over the last couple of days, that's important. Yeah. Thank you guys very much for allowing us to come in and interrupt your meeting. I appreciate the time. Does anybody have any questions?
Not at all. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, and is there any questions for that was a very entertaining synopsis of the years. I didn't realize you guys were so busy.
We try and hide it well, but
I know you do. You hide it extremely well. Maureen, you got a question?
Yeah, but Krista, thank you for being there last night, Adam, when the ferry issues or lack of ferry issues were underway. Thank you for being there. And
you guys did all the work.
We did some of it, yeah. My questions had to do with the category of a domestic violence flag and a mental health flag. What does a flag mean? And then the second part of the question is, there's a really very significant jump in mental health flags between 2018 and 2019. And that jump was maintained in the past year. I was curious if you had any comment about that. So first off, what's a flag? And second, any thoughts on the mental health flag?
My understanding of the flag terminology is within our records keeping system. If something has a flag attached to it, that just means that there's an aspect of that file related to that that flag. So if it's trying to think of a good example, if it's a traffic file with some form of impaired driving, there may be an impaired driving flag. So it's not just a traffic file, there would also have an impaired aspect to it. So some of the domestic violence files may have been detailed as an assault file because it was an assault offense with a domestic violence flag. It wasn't just an assault, it was an assault by a domestic partner. So that, my understanding of it is that's how you identify a domestic assault versus a standard assault within two people who are not in a domestic relationship. In terms of an increase in mental health files, there has been an uptick, but it's been in a certain demographic. It's been in younger people and this is kind of anecdotal from my experience. It's been predominantly teens that I've noticed having significant mental health issues and requiring treatment. And that, again, is anecdotal. I don't have statistics based on the age of the people. It's just what we've seen locally. But there has been an increase due to the pandemic and due to some of the challenges associated to it.
Thank you.
Hey, Allison?
Just picking up on that mental health issue, when you respond to one of those calls, do you actually have the resources you need to be able to respond? I mean, you people have had some training in dealing with mental health issues, but there's in the mainland somewhere, one of the cars, there's a mental health nurse that goes along with, or would it be beneficial to be able to call on one of the various people that live here on the island that are trained in that area if you're having to go and deal with somebody in the middle of the night or something.
It's always beneficial to have help with those kind of situations. We don't currently have access to anything like that. And I've approached Vancouver Coastal Health about accessing some of those resources for like the tents behind the library, for example, and helping us work through some of that. And we haven't really received a lot of, they haven't agreed to come across. So any help that we can get with that aspect is always very much appreciated. And we've tried to reach out for some of it, but those resources aren't currently here.
All right, Allison, is that it? No. Okay, I got the nod. Okay, well, is there anybody else? If not, thanks again, Adam and Gareth, for presenting tonight. Very entertaining. And I think we're in pretty good shape on the island because you guys look after us so well. Same with Greg and Rob there. We appreciate what you do in our safety and security. You're amazing.
Appreciate that, sir.
Unsung heroes.
Thank you.
Great,
Thanks a lot, you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Okay, business arising from the minutes. So we're going to the Island Plan 2021 over to Liam Edwards, Chief Administration Officer. Liam, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm wondering, considering the time, if we want to defer this or just have a very fast overview.
I think a very fast overview.
Yes.
Okay.
Be my choice.
Okay, so I'll keep it simple then, and maybe hope if I can share my screen just for a moment.
Should be able to.
Okay, here we go. Actually, now hit share. There we go. Do people see the plan?
Yep.
Okay, great. Bring it to the first page. So I did want to just, you're all familiar with this, and I appreciate all of the input that council brought to the development of the plan and to all the staff efforts to bring it up to current date. And I did want to make mention that we didn't do a 2020 plan. Well, Mayor and Council did the hard work of developing a strategic island plan for 2020, but then the pandemic hit and it never got finalized. And so it was almost there and almost ready, but through the distraction of managing the pandemic, it never did get finalized. However, there was a lot accomplished in 2020, as you all know. And so I won't go through the long list of accomplishments on the Zoom meeting right here today. But for yourselves and for those listening, there is also a list at the back of the plan that nicely encapsulates some of the highlights of 2020. There's a lot of activity. And so even though the pandemic consumed a ton of all of our time and derailed some of the progress on some of the key strategic initiatives, you can see that we still accomplished a lot in last year. The plan, just as a quick synopsis, the plan structure remains the same. And so council remains committed to the three overarching priority areas. So self-reliance, which includes advancing housing initiatives, major capital projects, plans for our community lands, and further securing our rural status. Strategic commitment B around resilience remains a key priority, strengthening our infrastructure and ecosystems through municipal actions, protecting our infrastructure and ecosystems through intergovernmental relations, addressing urgent water management and infrastructure issues, and preserving our unique island's identity. Those all remain high priorities and are reflected throughout the 2021 plan. And strategic commitment C around responsibility, we want to advance the asset management plan and develop a continuity plan for municipal operations. And we want to support collaborative community projects, and continue work on dock regulations, address emerging bylaw and policy issues, and develop and implement plans to address public safety, and continue to implement approved plans and strategies. We don't have time to go through each one of these strategic commitments and the associated actions, but I think we, even on an agenda for this evening, we see a lot of the work reflected in these strategic commitments. As I said, the structure of the plan remains similar to the previous year, so it's easy for council and for the public to compare past plans with the current plan and see how progress is being made. And then at the back end of the plan, we also have highlights from approved plans, which I'd call the sort of foundational plans for the community, plans like the community recreation plan, the cultural master plan, parks plan, transportation plan, climate action strategy, and we have the Mannion Bay management strategy as well. One addition to this year's from a sort of creative side is this really beautiful portrait of a Zoom council meeting by Ron Woodall. And I really think this is quite an excellent addition to the plan that really just captures the nature of the last year and what we're doing right now here on Zoom. And so I really appreciate the talent and creativity of Ron and for him sharing that with us and allowing us to put this in the plan. And I will finish up with that and turn it back to you, Mayor.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, that is quite a thing by Ron there. That's great. So we're going to move on to 6.2, which is a development variance permit DVP.
I think we need.
Can I make a motion?
Oh, the motion. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
That council approve its Island Plan 2021 as included in the May 10th, 2021 regular council meeting.
And
okay,
I'll second that.
Thank you, Michael. All in favor? Aye.
Yay.
All right, there we go. Yay. Good work, everybody. Terrific.
Thank goodness before it became the 2022 plan.
Yeah. We'll move on to 6.2, which is development variance permit DVP 2021-020-1160 Ecclestone, Tim Klauke and Rosemary Toy. Jennifer Ray Paris, Planner 1, dated April 28th. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity to present. I will share my screen. Okay, how's that working?
Perfect.
Okay, great. So this is the development variance permit for 2021-0020 at 1160 Ecclestone Road, for which you've heard several public comments over the past few council meetings, including today. And this is the consideration hearing of council for this development variance permit. I have a lot of the same slides that I did before, but I'm going to go through them rather quickly since we're short on time and also because you've seen them before, and just point out the new items. So the location of the dock, I've just added the drawing. Okay, so let me start by saying this is a proposal for a dock for the benefit of the public that may not be aware. And I have drawn here the approximate size of the dock in context of the entire Mannion Bay. And then again, the size as compared to the lot. So the application itself is requesting a variance to three pieces. One is the distance between the dock itself and the neighboring property, which is a right-of-way, which would normally be 10 meters, and it's requested a reduction to 6.6 meters for that distance, and the reduction of the offset to the shoreline from 1.5 to 0 so that the dock may start directly on the shoreline. And then the third piece is addressing access to the public beach through the proposal of a public statutory right-of-way across the front of the lot that would be tied to the variance itself. So there's the drawing. Okay, here is the view from the water and a summary of the DVP. Okay, here you can see where the proposed public beach access is located, approximately where the beach is located, and the proposed dock location all in one. Here you can see a view from the top, and I know council has now completed a site visit, which occurred last week. At that site visit, I took an additional photograph of the location of the end of the statutory right-of-way between a private boathouse that is at the end of the public right-of-way and the lot line where the dock would be. So this is approximately from the location of the proposed dock, looking back just to see what the access is like without the statutory right-of-way in the current condition. So from the end of the trail down to the high water mark, it's approximately 17 feet difference based on the survey elevations. So you can just get a better feeling of what that shoreline condition is. It's rocky and rather steep. So since the last time I've come to you, we have had additional public comments. This is the current tally updated as of 4 p.m. today. We now have 7 letters submitted in support of the project and 63 letters in opposition. But please bear in mind that the letters in opposition include those letters which are proposing a preference for deferral of the consideration of this permit in order to allow for additional information that has been put forth by the community, where they are requesting an engineer to come out and look at the feasibility of an access point directly to the high water line from this area shown in the photograph. So some kind of an engineered solution, such as a stairwell or something attached here to the rock wall that would make it possible to safely reach the high water mark. So my point here is that the letters in opposition, some are in favor of a deferral in order to consider the engineer's report. Those are merged with letters that are just straight up in opposition to the dock outright. Okay. There have also been some questions about the financial considerations of the statutory right-of-way, so I've added that to the presentation. So here I've estimated approximately the costs of the proposed statutory right-of-way. So to clarify, there are no financial implications of the dock approval itself. These are financial implications of the statutory right-of-way that is being proposed as part of the dock variance. So what you see here are initial costs, which include the legal costs of establishing statutory right-of-way, assessment of the nearby rock face stability for public safety as they traverse the statutory right-of-way, the initial establishment of that statutory right-of-way, including any clearing or things to make it safe to become a trail, and then possible improvements to the trail that leads to the statutory right-of-way, just to make sure that everything is in good shape. So we are approximating initial costs of around $6,500 should the statutory right-of-way be approved. And then the annual maintenance budget for parks, there would need to be some part there also dedicated towards annual maintenance of the statutory right-of-way. And so this is a very rough estimate based on the annual per kilometer trail maintenance cost that's found in the parks plan of 2018 to 2028. and includes both the maintenance on the statutory right-of-way and also the trail leading to the statutory right-of-way that would need to be kept to this designation of an undeveloped or difficult to access viewpoint or coastal access point trail designation, which has its own implications for the maintenance requirements of the trail. So this is an average number based on that, although the actual numbers could be a little bit higher due to the steepness of the trail and certain wear and tear based on its exposure. So this is just to give you a basic idea of potential financial implications of this. And this was added in response to public comments concerning potential costs that have come in more recently. So the recommendation that staff is putting forward at this point to council is that council consider deferring this application of the development variance permit in order that we can receive the engineering report, which is proposed to be coming in at around the middle of this month. So we would like to suggest deferring this application until the June 14th meeting of council, such that staff will have the opportunity to receive the engineer's report that we anticipate will come from the neighbors who are paying for this report, and also to consider its implications and bring that back to council. However, alternatively, council may choose to issue or to not issue the development variance permit that I have just described.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, any questions for Jennifer? I need the screen back, Jennifer, if you got a chance.
Okay.
Thanks. And we'll see what's going on here. Okay, we'll start with Sue Ellen.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, for the presentation. And there's not a lot in here about the exploration that the neighbors are doing of the engineering option. But I'm very interested to see that. I think it's good. When Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee looked at this a couple of years ago, they recommended that council direct staff to report back on options for restoring the public access point at the end of Ecclestone statutory right away, including the possibility of an easement across the neighboring property. So I'm really glad that staff has been pursuing that, because I think the public access is really important. But I'm also really interested in the option that the neighbors are exploring. So I would like to move the recommendation to keep things going. That council defer consideration of the development variance permit DVP 2021-0020 for the variance of lot line setback, beach access setback, and public beach access for 1160 Ecclestone and the crown land covered by water immediately adjacent thereto, legally described as Lot B, District Lot 1911 Plan 12596 PID 0088420027 to the June 14th, 2021 meeting of council.
Second.
Second. All right. Okay, any further discussion? I've got David Hawking there.
Thank you, Gary. I'm going to speak in favor of that recommendation, and for several reasons. You know, we have a population in the summer of somewhere around 4,000 people. Some of us have waterfront property, but most of us don't. And the public access to the water is very limited on Bowen, and so we need to keep what we have and increase it as much as we possibly can. Our history in this particular location has not been great, unfortunately. There have been all kinds of incursions onto this right of way and broken promises, it seems, in the past. So, you know, it behooves us to do our best to have a look at what can be done. And so I understand we're having an engineering outfit working on this, and we will have a report on that shortly. I want to wait until we see that so we can see all of the opportunities before us before we move forward on this. It was good to see the detail that Jennifer just gave us in terms of the operating costs. And we need to make sure that when we get this engineering proposal of the stairway, it includes items like operating costs and so on, any other costs that might be incurred. So we really understand what the opportunities are before us. So that's why I'm going to be voting in favor of this deferral. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, thank you, David. Anybody else? Okay, I will be voting
I
against.
think I see Michael's hand.
So there you go, Michael, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to ask, is this an absolute date that we can actually draw a decision here? Do we have an agreement that that council meeting in June is the date that this proposal must be ready, and therefore we can then take a decision based on this and it won't drag on any longer?
So the date is based solely upon the anticipated completion date of the engineer's report as reported by the neighbors who are commissioning the engineer's report.
My comment is that, look, if we say it's a June date, could we say to all parties, look, if we're to delay process to a June date, could we agree that that is the date it has to be ready by? Because I would hate then to see it placed into July and then drag on. We know to just to let everybody know that that is the absolute date.
Actually, that's the date of the meeting. So presumably the report would be required beforehand.
Okay.
That's the date that they asked for, I think.
Yeah.
The neighbors.
15th, yeah.
14th.
Yeah, because I must say, following the site visit, and I walked down and I looked straight ahead of me, and there is a natural path onto the beach. And I realized that for better or for worse, to actually take that simple direct path onto the beach means, and I'm going to ask the planners to correct me if we're wrong, for better or for worse, that land is privately held, and you would have to trespass that land to get walk straight across. Am I correct there, Jennifer, if I may ask?
Yes, the path, in order to get down to the beach now, the path as shown in the photograph is on private land.
Okay, so, and that would appear just to the mere casual observer to be the natural, simple route to the main part of the beach. Now, we are going to be waiting for a report, an engineering report, on an option which takes us, as we walk down, sharply to the left and down the 17-foot drop, Jennifer? And whilst
yes.
I acknowledge anything is possible given any degree of engineering, this is going to be a very, very challenging piece of engineering. And it takes us as well to the small segment of the beach to the north of the beach, which is easily cut off, because if you look at the shape of the beach, there's a promontory just as you go to south to the main part. So once the tide starts to come in, if you've got a family, say with small children, you have now got to access, if you want to leave, by the new staircase if it's built. Now, this is not going to be easy. So in fairness to the people who have written, in fairness to the people who want to make the proposal, we're agreeing to hold this over to a June meeting. Well, that will be judged, I suppose, to be the fairest way of dealing with it. I've just to state what I saw as being truly common sense. This is a very difficult approach, as opposed to what could have been a relatively simple approach through a dedicated right of way. And I'm not discussing docks issue or anything else. This is a very challenging undertaking to make this safe by way of access. And once you're down there, to make sure individuals are not marooned. So if that's the will of council, so be it. I would personally rather have come to a decision today. But you know, given the level of emotion that surrounds this issue, if it helps all parties to feel that this is the fairest and most appropriate solution, let us hope that will also provide less emotional and more thoughtful thinking onto this subject. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Michael. And Maureen?
Yeah, I just want to come back to the question of the date. I realize that the 14th is the date that was requested, but I just want to make very sure that it's understood that for us to consider the correspondence, the plans, whatever, at that meeting, that we need to have those in hand significantly before the meeting. So Hope, when would you need the documentation?
Let me just have a quick look at the calendar. So for the May 14th, the agenda will be published on, or sorry, June 14th, the agenda will be published on June 7th. So we would need any materials by May 31st at the sort of would be ideal, but June 4th, worst case scenario.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right. Personally, I will be voting against it. I don't think that there's any way that this can work. If from the site inspection, I don't think that obviously the most advantageous way to go would be through the existing easement. I think this is more about stopping the dock, which is unfortunate. The proponent is, if he hadn't gone for a variance, we would look at the situation. It's not dividing a beach, and it's not in an area that doesn't accept docks. So I think it would be pretty hard to turn that down at that time. So I don't think the solution is going to work. I'm extremely worried about ongoing maintenance on this and the burden on the taxpayer. So I will be voting against it. And any further comments, or should we just go to a vote? Michael? Michael?
I frankly concur with what you're saying as well, having seen it. The only reason, Mayor, I'm prepared to support this is at least to give these people, give the people working so hard on this alternative an opportunity to produce their plans. I have to agree with you. Just a site inspection shows that this is challenging in the extreme. But I am prepared to let's see what's brought forward, because I just feel that given the amount of input, that is the correct thing to do. So and then honestly, I guarantee to look at it entirely on its merits. But I feel obliged to. I feel obliged to see it whilst agreeing fundamentally with yourself, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Okay, I'll ask the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ander and Morse. Thank you. Okay, the recommendation passes. All right, we're moving down to
Thank
6,
you.
which is a utility cost recovery. Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning and Development. Hi, Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the Director of Engineering, Patrick Graham, and myself have for your consideration the revised local service area expansion policy with an update dated from the May 10th, 2021. That's today. So you've seen this a couple of times, and so we've continued to refine it based on council feedback. So you'll see an updated table for the finances at the end of the policy, as well as some updated formatting throughout, so corrections to the formula for making the calculations. So we hadn't prepared a presentation, knowing that council has seen it several times before, but just I know we had a couple questions in the public comment section, and so I just addressed those two at the start. So first of all, saying the financial formula is intentionally left out of the policy, so it gives the formula for doing it, but the actual numbers aren't part of that, so that staff can update as appropriate. I know with the previous policy, the hope was it was going to be done annually, and obviously wasn't. But it is the formula that we could update as necessary, or when we get an application, or publish updates as we get the new financial assets for the for each system.
Okay.
I don't know, Patrick, if you had other things you wanted to add about any changes to the policy.
Patrick.
You're just on mute, Patrick.
You're muted, Patrick.
There you go.
I think unless there's questions about how the concerns were addressed and the changes, I didn't have anything else to add.
Okay, thank you. Allison, over to you. Allison.
One question was raised by the public, and it's to do with the water calculation. And I'm trying to remember what we did with the old policy. It's the net book value divided by the total population equivalent within the service area plus the proposed expansion. So I think they were questioning why you would include the proposed expansion. And I haven't got the previous policy in front of me.
The previous policy, Allison, said by the number of properties included within the service area.
Okay, then why have you added including the proposed expansion for the denominator?
Patrick, I don't know if you're able to answer.
So it includes the proposed expansion?
That's what it says in the denominator for 5.
Well, I guess if we're considering a combination of the Cove Bay service area and a large number of new connections from Eagle Cliff and
no, let's just pretend it's 3
the
people
area
joining, 3
between
simple
Cove
little
Bay and
lots.
Eagle Cliff.
No, we're not talking about Eagle Cliff. We're talking about, let's say it's
Well,
Cove
if it's 3 people, then it doesn't.
1 lot. So you're going to take the total population equivalent included within the service area plus the 3 additional for your denominator. And if we're talking about the Cove Bay and Eagle Cliff merger, I think that's a totally different topic. That's not really covered by this policy.
Okay, my point is that doesn't make any difference in that case. If it's 3, and if you're dividing by, 650 or 653, it doesn't really matter. But if it's a bigger number, then it makes more sense to include all of the connections.
I'll disagree with you on that. And I would think this is a policy, so if there is a special circumstance, it could be waived. And I think a big expansion is a special circumstance.
All right, so where are we at on this?
If I may just add, I think Councillor Morse, I think that for these large expansions where we're talking about potentially merging systems and the like, then I agree that we will likely be looking at unique apportionments.
So I will move that we delete including the proposed expansion from the formula in number 5. And part of the reason for making that motion also is because the table was there for example, or is the table actually part of the policy?
The table is there for example.
So if you, to make it simple, then every year once we get the audited financial statements, you redo the table and it's there and somebody phones up and says, I've got 1 unit I want to add in, how much am I going to have to pay? It's there, it's done, it's simple, it's easy.
Yeah.
So that's the reason for my motion.
That would be fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, so long as we recognize and understand that for larger expansions that we may, that may change, because typically when we're looking at a large expansion to satisfy, it's going to require significant expansions of the infrastructure to satisfy that newer service area that we need to factor that in.
And they're also going to pay for it, maybe. So it's, as I think Councillor Hawking pointed out when we looked at the first draft, this is for just the general day-to-day sort of thing, not the special circumstances.
Well, it does cover something like will be coming to council shortly, which is the Grafton Lake Phase 1 development, which is 23 units. And you may have developments with substantial numbers being added to the Cove Bay water system. We were looking for a very general policy that would cover all those situations. It's not just property here and there.
Sue Ellen has her hand up.
Ellen, go ahead, yeah.
I think David's got his hand up too, but
Yeah.
thank you, Patrick. That was the question I was going to ask is what about the in-between amounts of lots being added? And surely a policy is to help people have some sense of this is the way it's going to be, some clarity around what will happen and what the costs will be. So that's the reason I won't be seconding Councillor Morse's proposal. I think this should apply to everybody. Should assume that this is going to apply to all. That's the point of having this policy, and that only if it's something really extreme would we be considering not having it. I don't think it's either very small or very big. It's everything in between. And so I think with the example of the 23 coming up, I support the motion, the policy, the way it was drafted. Thank you.
Okay. David?
And thank you, Gary. I had similar comments to Sue Ellen's. I read the same letter and I puzzled over it, and I could see the advantages in the wording in both directions. But for Allison, could you please tell me exactly what change you're going to make? I can't find it.
Point 5 in the policy has a calculation, and the numerator is net book value of assets plus cash on hand minus outstanding debt. The denominator is total population equivalent included within the service area, including the proposed expansion. And the proposed expansion ultimately for Grafton Lake is going to be way more than 23.
Yeah.
I don't see any problem with the wording as it is. I'm sorry.
Diluting the contribution. Especially if you get into the big ones.
Okay, Gary, I'm.
Yeah, okay, so Allison, you have a motion on.
No, nobody seconded it.
Nobody seconded it yet? Okay, is there a second for that? Okay, I don't see one, thank you. So the motion is dissolved. So let's vote on the original.
So I just had one question, which I've been asking all along and I've never had an answer to.
Okay.
And if you're somebody who's going to do a subdivision and there's adequate water in the system to accommodate the extra 2 or 3 lots.
Okay.
And they're already in the service area, how can the subdivision approving officer demand a contribution?
Okay, Patrick or Daniel, Liam, anybody want to jump in? I don't know why you couldn't.
So I guess in answer to that, I would just say that under our current existing policy, we have been charging subdivisions the local service expansion amount. We have not in cases where the developer has contributed to the assets of the system already. So there's a couple cases in the Cove Bay water system and the King Edward Bay water system where the developer has contributed to the assets of the system. And in those cases, the approving officer hasn't required that per lot charge.
So the approving officer had some flexible authority, which they're not going to have under this policy.
No.
I would think that the approving officer still has discretionary approval to weigh factors such as previous contributions.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would. I mean,
seem to have some okay. Seem to have some feedback from somewhere there. So the original recommendation is that council adopt the revised local service area expansion policy update and dated May 10th, 2021. Do I have a second for that? Okay, I'll take David. Further discussion? No, and I'll ask a question. All in favor of that? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Councilor Morris. Okay, thank you. It is, the recommendation is moved. Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to resolving encroachment at 205 Highland Trail and development of an encroachment policy. Patrick Graham, Director of Engineering, dated April 26, 2021. All right, Patrick.
We're bringing this back again as we discussed at the April 12th meeting. In that discussion, there was some discomfort about the extent of the work, and there was a desire for a site visit to see the works, and we've done that. There's the same proposal essentially to provide a road dedication that would ensure Highland Trail is on a public road dedication. And that would ensure that the work being done on the road, such as the upcoming paving project, which we're participating in terms of installing drainage under the road as well, that all that work is occurring on public road, and we don't run into potential problems of private property owners not agreeing with what we're doing. Wherever we have opportunities to correct situations where we have road that's not on right of way.
May I suggest, you're breaking up, Patrick?
Can you
turn off your video or your screen video? Yeah. Graham?
Stop my video.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Okay. The property owners have agreed to
She's still breaking up.
Reimburse
Oh, darn.
Hello?
Lost them all.
Well, now we can hear you. We heard
can hear
that
me
the
now?
property owners had agreed to reimburse the municipality, and now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, for staff time spent on the project. I don't think this was a an intentional. I think they would have done things differently. And everybody needs access to their property. It's a difficult property to access. The alternative of requiring everything to be removed is would cause a lot of disruption as well. So we're reiterating the recommendation that we exchange the easement over that retaining wall and parking area for the road dedication at the corner.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. And Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for that report. And, at first I was quite reluctant to sort of grant this because I think there were very, very substantial changes. Having seen the site visit and knowing that ripping everything out would probably create a lot more damage. And I appreciate the proponents, not making any excuses for this and sort of leveling with the municipality. And also, my big issue was making sure that we as a municipality don't bear any costs. So I appreciate that now we will be getting our staff time paid for. So I will be supporting moving ahead with this and fixing that situation.
Thank you, Rob. Allison?
Just the comments raised, I just unmuted myself. Oh. The comments raised by one of the speakers about, I'm looking at the covenant.
Tree cutting, yeah.
About some sort of screening on the edge of the parking area on the top part so that headlights and things like that wouldn't, is there any conditions for like some planting or a fence or something to?
There is they are installing a barrier, I guess a safety barrier. I don't think it's a visual.
I think they were worried about headlights and things.
Headlights. Well, I guess that would require some shrubs or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just sort of raise that with them. I guess my other comment is to do with the resolution itself. It says providing a road dedication. Maybe we should be specific that it's a road dedication at the junction of Highland Trail and Eagle Cliff Road.
Yeah, it was up in the maps. Yeah, if you want to do that.
Well, I don't have a map attached to.
Oh, really?
The very last page
of the report.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, sorry, it was the previous one. That's right. I'll make the motion.
Yeah, we can be more.
Sure, go ahead.
That council enter into an easement agreement with 205 Highland Trail for a retaining wall and parking area on municipal property, with 205 Highland Trail providing a road dedication to the junction of Highland Trail at Eagle Cliff Road to the municipality. Road dedication to the municipality at the junction of Highland Trail and Eagle Cliff Road. And that council directs staff to develop a policy to address requests for encroachments on municipal property and to address existing unauthorized encroachments.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
I think I see people. Maureen's got her hand up.
Yeah, just to.
Is that for this or for the, okay, go ahead.
Just to clarify, the last part of the recommendation and to address existing unauthorized encroachments. That's not specific to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry? That's not specific to the 205 Highland Trail. That's in general?
Yeah. To
develop
develop a policy.
Yeah.
There was a real lack of clarity for quite a long period of time and how to deal with the situation. And, there's other situations where there's encroachments and some question about how involved council should be and when they should be involved. And I think it would be helpful for everybody to be to have a clear process laid out.
I agree with that, and I support the recommendation. What I'm wondering is whether this recommendation should be severed into two resolutions, because the first one deals with Highland Trail and the second one is the more general direction, because they're technical terms smooshed together here, and I think there'd be greater clarity if we're able to at this point sever them.
Good point, Maureen.
Can we do
want to vote on the first part then?
Okay, now I've got a comment on the second one.
Okay, so
the first motion.
Well, and move the first part. So did it, and I'll second it, or did it get seconded?
It failed seconded.
Okay, good. And okay, any further discussion? If not, I'll ask the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. And then we'll go on to the second part. The council directs staff to develop a policy to address requests for encroachment on municipal property and to address existing unauthorized encroachments. Let's all, I don't know, I guess it was already moved and seconded. And then I'll ask a question, all in favor?
No, I have a comment on that one, please.
Okay, go ahead,
I'm a
Alison.
little concerned about the wording to address existing unauthorized encroachments. It sounds like that means we're going to go out and look for unauthorized encroachments and try and deal with them.
I don't think so. I think if we become aware of them, we should have a policy.
There's a list.
I don't think we're going to go out hunting for them.
Well, and so then I was wondering, could the resolution not just say that council directs staff to develop a policy to address encroachments on municipal, for dealing with encroachments on municipal property?
Yeah,
And
that
then
would
it's very simple.
That would be fine.
Yeah, okay.
To address encroachments on municipal property, I'd be
Yeah.
okay with that.
Sure. Yeah, it covers it.
And then it doesn't seem like we're targeting anybody. And it also sets that people in the future would go, oh, they got a policy now.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. Okay, well, that sounds like a nice friendly
amendment.
Friendly amendment. And I'll still ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Of the new friendly amendment one. Okay, thank you for that. And we'll move on then. And okay, so the development variance permit application DVP 01-2020 205 Highland Trail, Jennifer Ray Pierce, planner 1. I thought we covered this, but I guess not. Go ahead.
Good
Jennifer.
evening, Mayor and Council. This development variance permit is coming back to you for consideration. You had it for introduction before, so we'll see you. And it is the same lot as the report that you just discussed and voted on, but a different issue. So just to jog your memory, the proposal here for the variance is in regards to an expansion to a deck, which has been partially started and is currently on hold, awaiting the decision of council, and would also include it would be the completion of this deck, and also would include the demolition of some stairs that are down on the near Eagle Cliff Road for the same lot, but not related to the deck itself. So the deck, just the corner of it gets into the variance. So they're only asking for from the 7.5 meters setback to the front lot line, a variance down to 6 meters. So the recommendation from staff is that council issue the development variance permit just described.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, I'll open it up. Anybody have any questions for Jennifer? We've been through this once. Allison? No.
I forgot to lower my hand, but I'll read the motion.
Okay.
I move that council issue a development variance permit DVP 01-2020 for the variance of the side lot setback for expansion of an existing wooden deck for 205 Highland Trail, legally described as Lot 8 of Lot 2, Plan 4712, Block 6 to 8, District Lot 1552, PID 011397730.
Second.
Thank you, Allison. And I've got Michael second. And further discussion? Don't see any, so I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And we're going to move on to bylaws. And number 1, 7.1 is use of public places bylaw and bylaw notice enforcement, amending bylaw number 537 and 538. Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning and Development, and Bonnie Brokenshire, Manager of Environment and Parks, Planning and Interim Bylaws Service Manager. All right, take it away.
We can't hear anybody.
Hi there. Hi, Mayor and Council.
Hi,
Hi there. Sorry for the delay.
No problem.
I'm here to present the use of public places bylaw number 537 and bylaw notice enforcement bylaw amendment bylaw number 538. This is a follow-up presentation as first reading was given previously. At the January 25th, 2021 council meeting, the resolution was passed that council directed staff to develop a bylaw to restrict camping and or the creation of encampments on public places. Staff received council's direction and identified existing gaps in bylaw provisions related to use of public places. Staff focused on how to best address issues on public municipal lands, such as at the Cove Commons and municipal parks, trails, beaches, that continue to arise without adequate bylaws to regulate conflicting uses. At March 22nd meeting, staff brought forward a report, and bylaw number 537 and bylaw number 538 aimed at regulating some uses were given first reading.
Right.
Sorry, just gonna on to a few details about the bylaws. So bylaw number 537 and 538 pertain to certain uses on public lands, public places, only public lands. The bylaws do not contain provisions applicable to private property. And some of the activities such as polluting or other forms of damage to public places are addressed through the provisions in the bylaw. Prohibited activities are included under section 3.1. Section 3.2 in the bylaw, it provides provisions that are permitted with permits. Staff currently receives requests to use municipal land to hold activities, but mechanisms are not in place to permit such activities. And there's just a housekeeping amendment which was brought up in the previous discussion with council, as well with the bylaw 538. Incorporating council's feedback following council's discussion at the March 22nd meeting, staff conducted an editing process of bylaw 537 where some provisions that were covered in other bylaws were removed, definitions were tightened up, and words were added and deleted to enhance accuracy and readability. Some of the provisions have been made less restrictive and exemptions have been added and clarified. And I have included a track change version in your agenda package tonight. As of Monday, April 26th, 3 community members provided feedback. Staff has made some adjustments accordingly. Specifically, revisions to allow for First Nations rights have been made. One provision pertaining to homeless persons has been made less restrictive. And one public comment dealt with public nuisance acts, which are not covered in bylaw 537. Nuisance is covered under provincial legislation and is enforceable by the RCMP. Permits to occupy a public place. So the bylaw includes a Schedule A, an application, and a Schedule B, which is a list of fees to utilize public places for activities outlined under section 3.2 of the bylaw. Additional or alternative permits may be required for activities in a public place. For example, commercial filming and such. Minor changes have been made to the schedule since the bylaw was given first reading. Enforcement, there was just a bit of discussion at the first reading in the council chambers. And as with all regulatory bylaws, enforcement of bylaw provisions will be carried out by bylaw services as part of their regular duties and as per bylaw service investigation policy. Enforcement does not, or enforcement will be done within regular business hours. The bylaw is not anticipated to have any additional financial implications. Permit revenue is not anticipated to be significant, but the revenue from permitting and finding will help cover costs associated with maintenance, such as general cleanups and addressing vegetation impacts on public places as a result of some activities. Administrative staff time is accounted for in the permit fees as well. And environmental considerations, just some of the provisions are there to dissuade negative effects or negative implications to public lands. So the recommendations before council tonight is that bylaw number 537, 2021 cited as Bowen Island Municipality Use of Public Places bylaw number 537, 2021 be read a second time, and that bylaw number 538, 2021 cited as Bowen Island Municipality bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 196, 2008, amendment bylaw number 538, 2021 be read a second time.
All right, thank you, Bonnie. That's great. And the other thing here is the alternative. Should council not have substantial changes to bylaw 537, 537 and bylaw 538 and wish to accelerate the adoption of the bylaws, council may give bylaw number 537 and bylaw number 538 second and third readings. Okay, so questions for Bonnie?
Gary, I've got, oh.
Yeah, go ahead, Alison.
Did everybody get the email I sent around earlier this afternoon?
No.
I sent it to Hope, to Council Internal, and Bonnie and Liam, and I know it went out because Bonnie said thank you.
No, I didn't say I didn't say I didn't get it. I didn't say I didn't
So-
get it. I said I didn't read it.
Oh, well, I'll take that as an insult, but anyhow.
Well, no, it's not. No, don't take it personally now.
Bylaw 530, there's a couple of simple typos in bylaw 537, which I think can easily be changed without anything having to happen. But in part 4 signage, there's a word missing in 4.2 bracket C, which needs to be inserted before we give it the reading. And that is, if you look at 4.2C, it says an owner of any structure, shelter, motor vehicle possession, chattel, or other item in breach of this bylaw, remove that structure, shelter, motor vehicle, chattel. So the word possession is missing.
That was unintentional,
Bonnie?
so thank
Yeah.
you for catching that. Yeah.
So that's, and Bonnie had agreed with me with that. And the other major change is in bylaw 538, schedule A for AL. Section 3.2, all the penalties, and that starts at the bottom of page 4 of that bylaw. All the penalties for performing or taking part in a procession, none of those are violations if they're done with a permit.
That's
So-
correct. And that's what it says. Yeah.
But it doesn't say that under 3.2 in the enforcement, in the fines bylaw.
Oh, on that side, okay.
So without a permit has to be added to every one of those sections.
Yeah.
Bonnie's agreeing with me on
Agree.
that one.
Yeah, I agree.
We couldn't figure out some simple way to do it at the top, so.
Okay.
So it would be that we insert in bylaw 538 at section 3.2L, 3.2A to 3.2L at the end of the narrative in column 2 without a permit. So those are the two changes that need to be made. Then I'm quite happy to give it second and third reading.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, Maureen?
Thank you. I do have a couple of comments, and I'll just go through it in order. In the definitions section, the definition of public place has a number of items as being included. I wondered why municipal docks and piers were not included there. Should they be, or are they, and I'm just not seeing them?
Yeah, there is the wharf bylaw. So a lot of the issues are addressed in that wharf bylaw. And also we are going to be looking at amending the wharf bylaw a little bit to look at our fee structure and just some little provisions that haven't been working the best for us. But I think that we're pretty well covered under our wharf bylaw for most of the issues that could arise on the wharfs.
I appreciate that. I just wonder if, even if the problems are dealt with under that bylaw, if docks and piers should not be added here as a public place that is governed.
Yeah. You know, it would be, it's not bad to double up that way because
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt.
You know, it wouldn't, yeah, it wouldn't hurt. And I think they are a public place. They're well-used spaces.
Yeah, I'm thinking about things like the yoga on the pier sessions. And then in section 3.1, items of, this is about unsightly stuff. Items of any sort covering an area of land more than 9 square meters. What's the rationale for 9 square meters?
Where do you see that?
Little 3.
3.1.
Yeah.
Section I.
Okay.
And then subpoint 3.
Yeah.
Is there some thinking behind it?
There was some thinking, going back to the discussions with our legal counsel, and just that we both sort of felt that maybe that was a nice contained area that possessions could sort of be confined within.
So it's sort of your tent and that sort of stuff and your things that go with it.
Yes.
So it's saying that any one or more of the following, if any one or more of the following conditions is unsightly within the meaning of this bylaw. I need the dummies explanation because I'm not understanding this.
The area thing about it, yeah.
Is it the unsightly?
Go ahead, Bud.
Yeah, Daniel, maybe you can weigh in on this too. I guess, yeah. I think it's just the strewn about nature makes things unsightly, perhaps. Daniel, maybe you can weigh in on this one too. Yeah, trying to keep it contained.
Yeah, I think it's just saying by definition, it's unsightly if you're covering more than a certain amount of area with your personal possessions. But if your possessions are neatly within the 9 square meters, then they're not. Then it may not be unsightly.
Wow.
Meters is 3 meters, which is 9 feet.
Well, it's basically 10 by 10.
Yeah.
Do we really need that in there though? Should there be a square, an area?
That's part of what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Now, the second point, items of any sort scattered about or kept in disarray in the public place, makes more sense to me to leave it at that.
I agree.
And just strike item 3.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, I like that. Is everybody in concurrence with that?
Yes.
I have one.
A mess is a mess. It doesn't have to be a big mess. So
Yeah, I guess unsightly. I'm just thinking of bigger things like people that would leave a couple of canoes down at the entrance of, where there's a beach drop off. They drop them off from their car, and we've seen catamarans, small, different kinds of small personal vessels. Otherwise, besides those, I'm trying to think of an example besides tents and belongings, but would see, the thing is, you can have them all stacked neatly and be a nice tidy campsite, only big. Maybe that's the point, is the scale there. I'd be happy leaving it in because I don't think it harms to leave it in, and it would allow some kind of enforcement around big objects.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you got 2 and 3 sort of contradict each other. I mean, say items of any sort scattered about or kept in disarray in a public place, which is reasonable. And then it says items of sort covering an area of more than 9 square meters. So which is it? I don't.
It's any one or more.
Yeah.
In the stem.
So that 9 square meters doesn't really mean anything because number 2 says anything scattered about is illegal.
Number 3 doesn't say scattered about or in disarray.
Doesn't say neatly piled either.
It just says items of any sort. So it could be large things or tent with things outside of a tent, and it's trying to describe unsightly. So it's saying something that's covering more than 10 by 10 area is unsightly, to allow the bylaw officer to go and talk to that.
Okay, well, that sort of makes sense to me then.
Yeah.
Makes more sense. Yeah, I agree. So it is an area thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why not leave it in there then?
Yeah.
It's not gonna hurt anything.
I'll back away from pushing.
Okay, thanks.
that one.
Okay, Maureen?
I do have a couple more points.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Yeah, so in part 5, again, a suggestion in point B to add in docks and piers. And a question, what is the difference between an access road and an access area?
I thought of an access area like somewhere like the entrance to the library.
It's defined access area.
It is?
Yes, it means an area located within 10 meters of an entry point to a trail, park, or playground.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so there you go, it's defined. Yeah.
Is a dock a structure? I would say it is.
Where are we now?
We're still in
B at 5.1B.
We're still on the same point, Allison. It is a structure, Gary, but I think the specificity does not hurt.
Okay.
I'm almost done here.
No, that's fine. And if we want to add docks to that, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah.
More is
Those were
better.
my comments. Those were my comments. Thank you very much, Bonnie and Daniel.
All right. So is everybody in agreement with what we've just discussed about there? And all I'm thinking about is second and third reading here. So
yeah,
that's good.
I
Thank
see
you.
David's got his hand up.
Yeah, David.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I recognize this is really important and we need to move quickly, but I'm just worried there are too many bits that just feel too intrusive still. I guess I'm looking at 3.2. So, we're not allowed to do any of these things unless you have a permit. So 3.2C, post an advertisement. So, you're not going to get like those telephone poles in the Cove, or when there's going to be a play, there's going to be a performance. It gets posted up there, and that we read the stuff. They're kind of like notice boards, and nobody's going to try to get a permit to do that. So I don't know, and then sell or both for sale any refreshment. So kids can't have a lemonade stand beside the road. I don't know. I just feel there's kind of too much here. I'd like to delete a bit.
It's about the enforcement too, David. That's the other thing. You can have the bylaw here and the policy, but you have discretion whether to enforce it or not.
But then if we have rules that we don't enforce, then it involves the rules.
Yeah, I agree.
Gary, Bonnie's got her hand up and so does Liam.
Yeah, Bonnie first and then Liam.
I'll let Liam go first.
Okay, Liam, go.
Yeah, I hate to interrupt, and I don't mean to step on your toes, Mr. Mayor, but I'm just conscious of the hour and the remaining items on the agenda, and perhaps we can have council members submit their further comments to staff prior to third reading. And we take it to second tonight, if council so chooses.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to wind this up.
I think Rob's had his hand up for a while, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we'll go through it. Rob?
Yeah, thanks. And, I really concur with Councillor Hawkins' comment. I do see quite a bit of overreach. I'm just going through the list of things we're not allowed to do or that, we're asking people not to do. And I just tick off 4 that I do myself on quite a regular basis. And I think, we started this off of dealing with, an encampment issue, and then this sort of got it added to it. And I think a lot of these issues really require a lot more community consultation. And, and I appreciate with Bonnie and the bylaw enforcement, it's tough. I work in public sector as well. It's tough when you don't have clear rules to fall back on. Yet, I think if all these rules were enforced, we'd have a lot of trouble, because I think almost everybody does some of these things. So then you get in a scenario where you're sort of selectively following rules and other people are basically knowingly breaking the rules, and feeling bad about it. But, like, listen, who doesn't have a beer once in a while on the dock or something like that? I mean, it's gonna happen, right? And, I'm not a big smoker, but somebody might be smoking and now they're gonna go out in the woods and smoke. I just think there's a lot more here than meets the eye as far as enforcement goes, but also as far as, regulations. And I know we don't want to over-regulate, but I think this is going a bit too far. And I think for a lot of these issues, like for instance, Vancouver right now is looking at backing off of some of their alcohol consumption, especially on beaches. They're going to be starting to allow that. Now we're putting in a total ban on alcohol consumption on all of our public property. Is that the right way to go? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I think it deserves a broader consultation with the community. I know we have this issue right now of issues with people camping on property right now and not moving. I would be much more comfortable dealing with that right now than all these other issues that are being sort of added on at this time, where I don't feel comfortable making those decisions at this time. So I don't think I'm going to be supporting moving forward with this process, because I think that work needs to be done, and digging deeper into this without doing that first, I think would be a mistake, unless we can sort of sever the part that we need right now. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, Alison, you still have your hand up or not?
Well, I had another just very simple question, but I'm happy to leave it until after second reading.
Okay, Liam?
Oh, can I just add one more thing? We didn't really get a lot of comments, did we? And we did send, how was it advertised?
It was disseminated, like all of our notices, through social media. We could disseminate more, but communications team did their due diligence.
And
we got
article in the Undercurrent?
Yeah. And Bronwyn had an extensive article in the Undercurrent, and we got 3 public comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Liam, you had a comment?
No, sorry, my hand was.
Okay, Sue Ellen?
Yeah, I'd like to move the motion for second reading only.
Yeah,
so
go
that
ahead.
we can move the process forward to deal with the issues that we need to deal with more timely, and people can get their comments in. So I'm going to move that bylaw number 537 2021, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Use of Public Spaces bylaw number 537 2021, be read a second time.
As amended?
As amended. Yeah, thank you. And that bylaw number 538 2021, cited as Bowen Island Municipality bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 196 2008, amendment bylaw number 538 2021, be read a second time.
As amended.
As amended.
Okay, I'll second that.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Please, no.
What we want to do is get comments back, get back to and see if we can't change these things up a bit that we sort of decided on today, and then bring it to third reading. Okay, I'll ask a question. Sue Ellen, your hand up again?
Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's good. Opposed? Oh, there you go. Councillor Winan is opposed. All right. We're going to move on to the Bowen Island Municipality Cove Bay Water Parcel Tax Bylaw number 548 2021 and bylaw number 549 2021. Raj Hare, Chief Financial Officer. Okay, Raj, over to you.
So Raj had to leave for a personal appointment, and so I'll present this on
his
behalf. And I cannot profess to know it as intimately as Raj or present as well as he, so forgive me in advance for my muddling. Essentially, this is being brought back for originally it was going to be brought back for final reading. However, there were some amendments and revisions to the bylaw for clarity purposes. And so we're proposing that council rescind the third reading of these two bylaws, 548 and 549, and that then council move that the bylaw 548 and 549 are to be reread a third time as amended. And we would be moving that they would be adopted at a special council meeting that we're going to try to schedule for later this week. The amendments to the bylaw are pretty straightforward and included in the council package with the red line version, or maybe it's blue. But essentially, there was a definition for clarity on what a unit is. Yeah. And so the unit is more clearly defined, meaning either a distinct habitable apartment or living space, or space used for commercial or other purposes, or a parcel of vacant land. Additionally, we wanted to just make sure that it was clear that the internal borrowing, which included funds borrowed from the Land Opportunity Fund and would be repaid with interest to that fund. The bylaw in its entirety was reviewed by legal counsel, and legal counsel confirmed that the approach and the formula of using lots, as well as the BC assessment class, it was a reasonable way to advance this use of parcel tax. Both legal counsel as well as the ministry agree that the use of parcel tax is the preferred way to recover capital costs and repayment of debt. There was a minor amendment to the formula, just made for a simpler, cleaner formula. The outcome is exactly the same. If you did the math in both ways, you'd come to the same answer. It's just this revised method is just cleaner and simpler.
Okay.
And so I think I will leave the report at that and turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Liam. And questions? I see Allison's hand up.
Liam, when you were reading the definition of unit, we had some discussion today at the Parcel Tax Review Board. The reference to residential or commercial use, unit means a distinct habitable apartment or living space or a space used for commercial purposes, or a parcel of vacant land zoned for residential or commercial use. Did Raj tell you to take out zone for residential or commercial use? Because you didn't say it.
Yeah, so the current bylaw definition.
I'm looking at the track changes one, the new one. Is that what you mean by current bylaw?
So the new one, it has in there, unit means either a distinct habitable apartment or living space or space used for commercial purposes, or a parcel of vacant land zoned for residential or commercial use.
Okay, because there's a problem. Because if you look at the formula in 3.3, and that's what I was trying to raise this afternoon, it talks about the total number of non-residential class units. So right. I think it just should say, or a parcel.
I think the proposed wording that Raj has suggested is that unit means either a distinct habitable apartment or living space or a space used for commercial or other purposes, or right. a parcel of vacant land. That's the latest wording he sent to Liam. And
okay, so
word other.
Better put other in front of purposes and
or other right. purposes after commercial.
Right, which is a change, actually, Allison, you're correct, since that.
Okay, and delete zone for residential or commercial use.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you, because otherwise all the class, everything, only class 1 and class 6 would be what was being taxed. Okay, thank you.
That's right.
Okay, you're happy with that, Allison?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sue Ellen?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just asking about the deadline. We heard in public comments from the president of the seniors co-op, Robert Wood, and he was asking for more time, hadn't seen it. And I'm just wondering, what is the deadline for this?
We're based. Sorry, go ahead. We're basically running out of, or right up against the deadline. We need to issue the tax notices, and so we don't really have much of any time to reconsider.
Okay.
Can I add, Liam, that Raj has spoken today to Robert Wood at some length as well, explaining to him the outcome of the review panel.
That was my next question. Was
yeah, no, he has. No, so sorry, not wishing to answer, but Raj has spoken to him.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Kale, for that, because I was remiss in my opening statements about how the parcel tax review panel did meet this morning and reviewed any complaints, and this being one of them, really the only one, and that the parcel tax review panel did review the parcel tax roll and approve the roll as it was.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't know who the appropriate person to talk about this, because I got this email really late too from Robert, and I don't know, Michael, if you can chime in on this one, or if Liam, you can answer this, but it's for the question he brought forward with the number of people per unit, and how, for instance, in the high density, the building he's in, there's a lot fewer units than a lot fewer people than would be in some of the other, the 3 to 4 household units. Any comments on that aspect of it?
Well, only in as much that Raj explained to him that it wasn't possible to separate out this particular question raised by Ms. Woods, although there was some definite sympathy for him, that the whole issue of the parcel tax means that this tax so issued does enable these folk to, at the end of the year, pass on their taxes and not have to pay directly. What's the correct term I'm looking for? Defer their taxes. Yeah. That is why the parcel tax method was basically chosen. However, it did preclude making exceptions on an individual basis, and that was the conversation that Raj had with Mr. Wood this afternoon.
And he had it at the Parcel Tax Review Board with us.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We basically brought it to a level this afternoon, given the timing. We met at 9 and then we met at 12:30 to enable us to present this or to move ahead today, because really we simply backed out of time.
Okay, so I got Allison, Sue Ellen, and Bob. I think
my hand is still
you're
up.
all done. You're all done. Okay. Yeah. So the recommendation is the council rescind the third reading of bylaw number 548/2021, cited as a Bowen Island municipality parcel tax bylaw 548/2021, and bylaw number 549/2021, cited as Bowen Island municipality parcel tax bylaw 549/2021. And the bylaw number 548/2021, cited as Bowen Island municipal parcel tax bylaw 548/2021, be read third time as amended and finally adopted.
No.
Oh.
No, not adopted.
Third time as amended.
As amended. and that bylaw number 549, 2021, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Parcel Tax Bylaw 549, 2021, be read a third time as amended.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, well done. Thank you. Let's move on to the autumn. Oh no, here we are.
Keeping the audited statements.
Audited financial statements, Raj here.
And so again, Raj is unable to be here, and we also would like to defer this item to later, ideally this week, when we can have a special council meeting, allows council more time to review the statements.
Okay, thanks, Liam. And Maureen, question?
No, just I was going to suggest deferring, so thank you very much for doing so.
Super. Okay, so 8.2 is the Grafton Lake Affordable Home Ownership Housing Agreement. Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning and Development. Do we have to the recommendation to defer that or not? The original, the 8.1?
Yeah, I think so. I think we need a recommendation. And
by consensus that it's deferred?
By consensus, thank you. And this is Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning and Development.
And may I just say, I'll be recusing myself from this item because I may have a potential interest in applying for ownership of one of these units down the road. So
okay,
I'll
thank
sign
you.
out and hope if you could shoot me a message when I can come back. Thank you.
All right, so Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor Ander. I have a short presentation that I will go through very quickly here. So just to give council some background on this, this is a housing agreement that's associated with CD21, so a development around the Grafton Lake that was adopted by council in October of 2018. And as part of that development, 35 units of housing were to be provided under terms of a housing agreement, so 25 rental and 10 ownership. The 10 ownership units are to be provided in the first phase of the development. So they're proposed for the current lot 3 in an active subdivision application. So this is showing just the land on the north side of Grafton Road, on the east side of Grafton Lake. So the new road that goes in, right adjacent to the water treatment plant, is where this housing development would take place. So the staff and the developer have been working off and on to craft the housing agreement. And we have several outstanding policy questions that we want to bring to council's attention before finalizing that agreement and that bylaw. And I'll just run through the questions here and give you a high level of what they are. So question is qualified purchaser criteria. So who is eligible to buy a unit? So the staff report goes into what we've done previously for the Belterra agreement and what some other options are. The second would be in the purchaser selection. So how do we select, assuming that the assumption is working on that there'll be more people eligible to purchase them than there are those 10 units. So how do we select from the 10 or for the 10 units? The resale, so how is affordability captured? So the classic, the one that's used for the Belterra example is that resale price is capped at the consumer price inflation annually over time. Some other models do things like they take a % of the below market value, and so they assume that the units appreciate at market rates. The fourth would then be selecting resale so how are subsequent purchasers selected? Again, assuming that the units come back on the market, and again there's a long list of people anxious to purchase them. And the fifth item for discussion is just the Cove Bay water contribution. So who should make the contribution to Cove Bay for any expansion? So that's what used to be $10,000, and as we talk about in the policy now. So who would make that contribution to the system? So I'm conscious of time of the meeting, but staff are looking for council to refer this staff report to the Housing Advisory Committee for review and recommendations, at which point we would be coming back to council for confirmation before finalizing the housing agreement bylaw for adoption.
All right, thanks, Daniel. Okay, do you want to go through them individually or just an overview and we can talk about them as we go through? Daniel, is that the?
Yeah, I mean, I was giving you the overview of
number
the
one.
questions that we have, and I don't know if council wants to discuss now or would rather wait for sort of some of the recommendations from the advisory committee to come back for a further discussion with council.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we refer it to the housing group, and then
Okay.
we can discuss it when we've got their comments as well.
Yeah,
Because we
I'll
don't have
sec-
time. Okay.
I'll
Thanks,
second
Rob.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'll
yeah,
read
go
the-
ahead.
I'll read it. That
Yeah,
council
thank you.
refer the draft housing agreement for Grafton Lake and the attached staff report dated April 26, 2021 to the Housing Advisory Committee for review and recommendations.
Yeah, second.
Okay, Rob's got the second on that. Any further discussion? It's very complex. It almost, and I'm concerned about the municipality taking over the jurisdiction of it. I don't see that as a really good idea, but that'll be fought out in the process, I guess. Anyway, any further discussion? David?
Yeah, Gary, I've got, I kind of went through this and I sort of made up my mind on some of these questions, but I'm happy to let it go to that other group first to have their thoughts. But this is quite tricky because, as you just said, it's very complicated. Like the resale part, who on earth handles some of those details down the road? Hard enough the first time you do it, but each resale get, so how will is there a time frame that we're worried about here? Because this, we need to spend a bit of time on this one.
Oh, we're not going to do it tonight.
No, I know that. I know that.
Refer it, but so we'll send it out there. I just any general comments before we send it back? What do you think, David? Anything?
Well, I guess my first was the one about that the Belterra had about not having you don't own any property anywhere in the world for 5 years. Or something like that in the last few years. And I just didn't agree with that one for the reasons that were mentioned in the report. Is that would, someone who has changed circumstances on Bowen wouldn't be eligible.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, and that was an option. So I guess the housing advisory can look at that.
But I guess we don't need to give any of those recommendations now. We can spend some time on this when it comes back to us after that.
Yeah, let's see what they come back with. Allison, have you got anything?
Well, I just there's Daniel, your report and the point 5, at the very last sentence, it says this would be a fairly option than option 2. So I'm not sure what you were trying to say there.
There's a word missing in there.
There's something missing.
It's under Cove 5, Cove Bay water contribution.
The last sentence.
Last sentence. Fairly good option than option 2.
No.
Oh, right. That's right. This would be a fairly option. Yeah.
It would be a fairly option, I think, Allison.
Yeah, definitely a fairly option. At this time of night, it's going to be a fairly option. Let's let the housing advisory-
He can clarify that.
And then the other thing I just wanted to say is a lot of these questions were well thought out and well researched and discussed in a paper done by the Affordable Housing Working Group, and Belterra's waitlist model and everything was copied after that, was sort of largely based on all of that research. So I will dig all that out for you.
That's great input. Thank you, Allison.
Will be good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask the question. All in favor? Aye. Okay, I think we got 100% there. Thank you.
I'll just, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'll just say I'm open for anyone to send me thoughts or want to discuss more before it comes back.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Neil. I will do that.
Thanks for that, Daniel. And we're going to move on to the development variance permit for 1149 Senator. And that's Robin Fenton is representing that to Jennifer Ray Pierce, Planner 1. Jennifer, you still there? You are.
Hello for a third time, Mayor and Council.
Yeah.
Good evening again. Sharing my screen. Okay, this is an introduction for the development variance permit 10/2020, which is located at 1149 Senator Road. here is the location. So it's in the Deep Bay neighborhood in this lot here at the end of a cul-de-sac. You can see here unit 1149 with the existing dwelling rather close to the front of the property. The proposal is for an addition to the front of the house, which I'll be showing in a moment. So the existing conditions are we have an existing residence here that's on the modest side of residences and also kind of an older building. And the people that live there would like to do a small expansion on the front to increase livability without needing to do larger changes to the existing building. They're also proposing a new parking space, which is to be located where you see this gravel trail. So the trail would be widened to allow for an off-street parking. Currently, this unit has only on-street parking available. So here is the site plan with the scope made more clear. So you can see here the front of the home. Here's the lot line, and the proposed additions are in this yellow color, with the red indicating areas where the proposed addition encroaches upon the front offset. So the front setback. So normally it would be a 3-meter setback in this zone, and they are asking for a 2-meter setback. And my apologies, it's actually a side lot setback, even though it's kind of the front. Front would be down here. So here's the location for the new on-site parking. And also a stipulation of this variance permit is the relocation of an existing shed belonging to the inhabitants who would move this shed, which is currently on the municipal right-of-way, back into the lot, so that it is no longer violating the on the municipal right-of-way. So this is just the introduction hearing. So the recommendation is that notice be given that DVP 10/2020 will be considered by council at the meeting on June 14th, 2021. And also to give notice to the public regarding that consideration.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And that's that shed would be nice to get moved to the back. And the on-site parking, there's a trail there now. They can't use that. Is that what you're saying? Like they couldn't just use that? So, why do they need permission?
It's not wide enough at this time. Maybe it looks wide in the photo, but it's not wide enough for a car to park there. It would be on the rocks there on the side.
But why can't they use it? Why can't they just expand it and use it? I don't know.
Because it's on the municipal.
Well, they don't need a variance.
Okay.
Parking there, it's just part of the proposal.
Okay, thanks. I thought they were looking for some kind of a lead on that or something.
No, the only variance is for this one small piece of the expansion.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Allison, do you have your hand up?
Oh, no, I didn't mean to.
Okay. Anybody else in the program? No, it must be getting late at night. There you go. Michael, go ahead.
Yes, I think I'd like to speak in favor of this. This is a very modest change, and it's getting a shed off part of our land. It's obviously creating convenience for this house to make it more livable, and I can't imagine why we wouldn't support such a modest arrangement to help these folk make their house more comfortable and probably overall more attractive as well. So I'd like to speak in support of it, Gary.
So you're going to read the motion?
Yeah, read the motion.
Maybe just wait. Councillor Nicholson is just joining us. Just give her a second so she can.
Oh.
Sorry, there's just a delay there.
Maureen, were you gone for a while?
She'd recused herself and we forgot to invite her back.
Oh.
No, I texted her and then put my phone down too quickly and I didn't hit send, and then she emailed me, so it was totally my bad. Sorry, Maureen.
This recommendation, Maureen, have you seen this? It's just it'll be considered by council and notice to the neighbors. Are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Michael's going to read that.
Okay, the recommendation is that notice be given that council will be considering the issuance of development permit DVP 10/2020 for the variance of the side setback to 2 meters for a new addition for 1149 Senator Road, legally described as Lot 6, Block 6, District Lot 490, Plan 11393 PID 009078860 at the June 14th, 2021 meeting of the council, and that council authorized staff to give notice for the consideration of issuance of variance permit DVP 10/2020 in accordance with section 499 of the Local Government Act to all properties within 100 meters of the legal boundaries of 1149 Senator Road, legally described as Lot 6, Block 6, District Lot 490, Plan 11393, BID 009078860. Thank you.
Well done. And I'll second that. And any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
So report of committees, commissions, councillors Hawking and Nicholson, re-recommendation from the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee, meeting held April the 7th of 2021. All right.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Everyone can just read it. I would like to say that Bonnie worked well with the committee to make this the plan quite feasible and doable and in line with the kinds of things that council is looking for. So I don't really have any other comments. Maureen, do you have anything? No.
No, I just want to echo what you said. And thank you to Bonnie.
Yeah.
All right. So the recommendation is that council approve the 2021 ECAAC work plan as included in the May 10th, 2021 regular council agenda. Move with that and look for a second.
Second.
Thank you, David. And further discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So we'll go down to new business. Now I am, it is at the 9:30 magic mark here. And I think we can clean this up very quickly here. Probably another, 15 minutes outside if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll press on then. 11.1 is the CAO update. Liam?
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, sir. 12.2 or 11.2 is the update to council on Metrovan business. Metrovan Director David Hawking.
Okay, thank you, Gary. It's always late at night when this happens and I don't have any energy left. I can hardly remember my name. But I'll start with, there's a couple of things. One, and this was mentioned at an earlier meeting. This was in the board meeting. There was quite a discussion around moving the award for the composting for all of the composting in the region that goes to the North Van transfer station. And then instead of getting shipped up to Pemberton, it is now heading to Princeton. And this is a 5-year contract. And it was many people were unhappy about this for a couple of reasons. I mean, it's going outside of our district or outside of our region, no matter, but Pemberton is a lot closer and it meant that the compost here came back here and people could buy it. There was also the issue about the GHGs from a much longer trip. And also some of the compost will go to agriculture. Some of the compost will go to mine reclamation. So it was sort of kind of a lower end in terms of, but the reason this won the contract is because it's the mine there, the copper mine.
Yeah.
You go by that and you see the mine. Some of the copper was being delivered by Arrow, the company, to North Van. And so what happened is then they were able to take the compost on the backhaul. So basically it was free in a sense for them. And so that made it the cheapest of the alternatives. So that for 5 years, that means that that compost will no longer be available for us here. And so that adds perhaps an incentive to have another incentive to have our own system on our island. The board did then make a recommendation to staff to review their policy that led to this, because although climate change, agriculture, working with First Nations were included in our policy, our purchasing policy. There would like to be more significance paid to those. So there will be a change in that purchasing policy. The other thing I wanted to mention, 4 of us were at the Council of Councils meeting a couple of days ago. And I thought it was very good. Others probably will have their thoughts about it. But it went over a bunch of the things that I've already talked about. But one of them that I thought was particularly interesting was also on the board meeting. And this is the review to the regional growth strategy. So the current regional growth strategy, Metro Vancouver 2040, that was completed in 2011. It's now 10 years old. And there's a feeling that there are a number of changes in terms of climate, in terms of particularly housing affordability, some of the First Nations issues, equity issues, that they needed to revisit some of that. So the regional growth strategy is being revisited. And at the same time that the transportation for the TransLink is doing its work, which is great. The changes in it are really quite interesting. And what's of course important, a couple of important things here, is that all the other municipalities will have to adjust their OCPs to align with these changes. We don't have to, because of course we are not a signatory to the regional growth strategy because we're part of the Islands Trust. However, I think if folks looked at some of the things that are in the new language, for instance, in the last board meeting, there was draft language for Goal 3, protect the environment and respond to climate change impacts, and all sorts of detail around these, including things such as the clarification of the intended uses in conservation and recreation lands, which is most of Bowen Island, the conservation and recreation lands, supportive policies on green infrastructure, and considerations of a value of ecosystem services, something we talk about quite a bit that we'd like to see. Strengthen language on land use and transportation policies to cut GHGs, a whole array of things that would fit into the GHG reduction agenda. There's other ones that are on housing affordability. Now, I know we don't have to do this work, but of course we don't have to look at this in detail and then send our comments and then change our OCP. But our OCP was also done in 2011, and the kind of things that are getting the Islands Trust to redo its policy statement, and Metro Vancouver to redo its regional growth strategy, I think they also apply to Bowen Island. And in any update of our OCP, it would be very useful to have a look at all these changes that Metro Vancouver is making in theirs. Now, how we look at that, I don't know. I guess we could have the Advisory Planning Commission have a look at it. Our planning staff will be seeing this stuff. So this is a longer conversation, but I just wanted to introduce this topic as how we look at the kind of changes that are being made by other governing groups that we are related to in various ways, and how we make sure that we're keeping up with these kinds of really interesting changes that others are making that we don't have to do, but probably we should do. So it's too late in the night to have a long discussion about this, but I'm raising that question, and I'd like to have a conversation about it down the road when we've got a little bit more time.
Okay, thank you, David. Sue Ellen, you still want a question there? Quickly?
Just a quick note that for the last OCP, the planners that we hired on contract at that time, Dave Whitty and City Spaces, they did look at the regional growth strategy and found that it wasn't inconsistent with everything else. So it and the Islands Trust policy statement and all the other public input and input from other agencies was all incorporated, and I think we can do that again.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Maureen?
I'd just like to support David's suggestion to begin this conversation. Heather McNell, I don't know what her title is, head of planning.
Head of planning and housing.
Planning and housing for Metro, I think would be a terrific person to have a conversation with. And in particular, I've always been interested in having some more detailed discussion of sort of the place of the areas that are outside the urban containment boundary. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Because they're basically, my impression is, they're basically not discussed in Metro 2040. Don't know about 2050, but we're sort of a black hole in terms of the awareness, is my impression. And I may be wrong, and I would like to, I'd like to hear from Heather, because we are being affected. I mean, our housing situation is so affected by the overflow from other areas of Metro. So just in support of your suggestion, David.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
Add a little bit about, I've talked to Heather actually about this because I used to work with her, and she's really thoughtful and very smart. She's so smart it makes my head hurt sometimes. But she would be great to come and discuss this with us.
That'd be awesome. Okay, we're gonna move on to, thank you very much, David. That's really good. And update to council on Island Trust business, Island Trust Municipal Trustees, Fast and Kale.
I'm going to skip it. It's late tonight. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay,
Michael.
In the interest of brevity, this afternoon, I attended a meeting, which is the Trust Council Select Committee, the Governance and Management Review. And we actually, for the first time, had a chance to meet the consultants who are going to be doing the review. Now, in the interest of information as opposed to misinformation, we're going to be sending out a statement or an information piece, a general communication piece about people involved, what they're doing, and to set the stage for this review. So it may just take a short time in writing, and I hope you'll accept again, rather than me try to paraphrase all the individuals involved and their marvelous resumes, etc., etc., etc. A package is being prepared to bring everyone up to speed about the governance and management review, and it's being done with the team leading the charge, which involves the chair of Islands Trust and the CAO. And please expect that shortly. It's on the way, and I think that will answer all the questions to date on this review. But it's quite a sense of achievement that May the 10th, we actually got to meet the good folk allocated to be doing this review. So you'll be hearing more as soon as we have this prepared document. It'll be circulated to all.
All right. Thank you, Michael. It's encouraging. And update to Council Metro Vancouver Regional Parks committee meetings. Councillor Nicholson, Maureen.
Nothing to report. We haven't met.
Okay. And 11.5, thank you. Update to Council on TransLink Mayor's Council meetings. Councillor Alison Morse.
We met on April 29th and had a very interesting discussion about going the public consultation program and for Transport 2050, and it's well launched. And I'll hope to attach the link to the agenda with the report, but it was very good. And then a bit of a discussion about the electrification of the fleet, and electric buses have been ordered, and hopefully we can order more because government grants and that kind of thing. So please, everybody, get involved in the consultation process.
Okay, thank you, Alison. And okay, so then we'll go down to question period. Questions, that's great. And then we get down to adjournment.